Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a place where survival wasn't measured only by the battles you fought, but by the land itself. A place where the heat pressed down like a weight, where the air clung to your skin, and where every step carried a new risk you couldn't see coming. We're talking about life in the jungles of Vietnam during the war. Movies often show explosions, firefights, and strategy. But for the soldiers who lived it day after day, the jungle itself was often a deadlier enemy than the one holding a rifle. Before we get started, take a moment to make yourself comfortable. Dim the lights, find a spot where you can relax, and maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. If you enjoy these journeys into history, feel free to subscribe, but only if you genuinely like the way I do things here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's listening from around the world. Now let's ease into the story. Imagine waking up not in your bed, not in a quiet home, but in the thick of the Vietnamese jungle, where the ground never seems to dry, where the trees block out the sun, and where your first challenge of the day isn't the enemy, but the environment around you. You open your eyes to a world that doesn't feel like morning, because the light never really makes it through the canopy. Instead of a sunrise filling the sky, you get a slow change from black to a murky green haze, filtered through layers of leaves that drip with water no matter what time of year it is. The air is already thick and heavy, pressing down on you as if you're breathing through a wet cloth. There's no birdsong that sounds cheerful, no calm breeze drifting by. Instead, the first sounds you hear are the buzzing of insects, the low croaks of frogs, and the constant hum of life that never sleeps. The jungle never really wakes up, because it never really rests. It just changes volume. Your body feels sticky before you even move. Sweat has soaked through your uniform, though you weren't even moving in your sleep. The fabric clings to your skin, damp, rough, and carrying a sour smell that never seems to wash out no matter how many times you rinse it in the nearest stream. You didn't fall asleep in comfort. You passed out from exhaustion. Your hammock or cot, if you even had one, is strung up between trees, the ropes biting into the bark, and the netting wrapped tightly around you to keep at least some of the insects away. The problem is, it never really works. You've already felt the sharp bite of mosquitoes drilling through the net in the night, or worse, the slow crawl of a leech that found its way in while you were too tired to notice. You turn over, and the first thing you see isn't a ceiling or a familiar wall, but layers of green and brown above you, branches knotted together like an endless roof. Dew clings to every surface. Drops fall on your face, cold at first, but quickly lost in the constant layer of sweat that coats you. Your boots sit next to you, wet, never really dry, always filled with a sour smell that tells you they're rotting just as much as your skin inside them. You put them on anyway, because walking barefoot here isn't an option unless you want a cut, an infection, or a bite that could end more than just your day. The jungle greets you with a smell that never leaves your memory. It's a mix of wet earth, rotting vegetation, mildew, and gun oil. Every soldier carried that smell on their skin and in their gear. No matter how much you tried to clean yourself, you carried the scent of the jungle everywhere, and it clung to you like a second skin. It wasn't just unpleasant, it was overwhelming, always there, creeping into your nose and throat until you stopped noticing it during the day. But waking up every morning It hit you again, like it was new. The sounds get louder as you start to move. Cicadas scream in waves that feel like drills boring into your ears. Frogs and birds call from every direction, some of them so loud they could pass for alarms. And beneath it all is the constant rustle of leaves, as if something is always moving near you. Whether it's a lizard, a rat, or something larger you hope not to see. At night, you swore things crawled past your hammock. In the morning, the tracks left in the mud proved it. You try to stretch, but the air makes it harder. Your joints ache not from age, but from the endless dampness that settles into your bones. Muscles feel heavy, like they've been weighed down overnight. You're not rested. You're simply less tired than you were before you closed your eyes. Sleep isn't recovery here. It's just a pause. Your face itches from dried sweat and insect bites. You scratch, and your fingernails dig into scabs and fresh welts, reminders that the jungle feeds on you as much as you try to feed yourself in it. You slap at your arms, half expecting to find another mosquito already feeding. Most of the time, you're right. The buzzing never stops. It's in your ears, around your face, against your skin. By the time you're up and moving, your hands have already swatted dozens away, but dozens more take their place. You look around at the others, if you're with a unit. No one wakes up refreshed. Faces are pale or swollen from bites, eyes bloodshot from broken sleep, lips cracked from dehydration. Some men cough as soon as they sit up, lungs filled with damp air that never seems to clear. Others mutter curses under their breath, trying to brush ants off their gear or fish leeches out of their socks. The jungle is democratic in its cruelty. It doesn't matter who you are. It finds a way to get into your skin, your gear, your food, your mind. The ground beneath you is mud, even if it didn't rain last night. It never really dries. You sink into it with every step. Your boots pulling at the earth with a sucking sound that slows you down before you even start your day. Every movement requires more energy than it should. Climbing out of the hammock, adjusting your gear, slinging your rifle over your shoulder, each action feels heavier here, like gravity works harder in the jungle. By the time you're standing upright, sweat is already running down your back, stinging cuts you didn't even know you had. You think about water, but not in the way you would at home. You don't reach for a clean glass or a cold bottle. You reach for a canteen, and you worry if it's still safe. The water you drank yesterday tasted faintly metallic, boiled and treated with purification tablets that left a bitter aftertaste. You forced it down anyway, because thirst here isn't a discomfort. It's a threat. Every drop of sweat you lose has to be replaced, and the jungle drains you faster than you can refill. You can't trust the streams or puddles that glisten nearby. They might look clear, but upstream could be rotting plants, animal waste, or worse. More than one soldier who risked it spent the next week doubled over with cramps, fever, and dysentery, the kind that strips the strength out of you until you can barely stand. The first steps out of your sleeping spot feel like entering another world. The vegetation towers over you, vines hanging down like ropes, branches reaching across as if trying to block your way. The ground is uneven, a mess of roots, stones and holes that twist your ankles if you don't watch every step. The jungle doesn't open up. It closes in. You never see more than a few feet ahead of you, and every direction looks the same. Endless walls of green broken only by patches of shadow, and bursts of light that never quite reach the ground. You listen, because listening is survival here. not just for the enemy, but for the jungle itself. You listen for the snap of a branch. That means something larger is moving nearby. You listen for the sudden silence, because when the insects stop buzzing, it usually means danger. Sometimes that danger is human. Sometimes it's the land itself. A sudden landslide, a falling tree, or a flash flood that can sweep through in minutes. The jungle doesn't give warnings you can read easily. It just changes, and you have to be ready when it does. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is cold, pulled from cans or packets. The metallic taste of sea rations, the same salty meat and beans you ate yesterday, the day before, and the week before that. You don't look forward to it. You eat it because you have to, chewing quickly before the flies and ants find their way into it. Nothing stays untouched here. Open a tin of food and you'll see insects circling within minutes. Leave it too long, and the ground itself seems to come alive as ants swarm over it, carrying it away piece by piece. You eat fast, not because you're hungry, but because there's no other choice. As you pack up, you notice the little things that never change. The mould creeping into the corners of your gear, the rust forming on your weapon if you didn't clean it the night before, the way your socks smell sour even after drying them over a fire. Everything breaks down faster here. Metal rusts, cloth rots, food spoils. Even your body feels like it's wearing down quicker, each day adding aches and cuts that don't have time to heal before new ones appear. The sun rises higher, though you barely see it. Instead, you feel it. The temperature climbs, the air thickens, and within minutes you're drenched again, as if you'd stepped into a steam bath. There's no relief, no breeze to dry you, no shade that truly cools you. The jungle is shade, but it's also an oven. Heat wraps around you, clings to you, fills your lungs until breathing feels like work. You look at the others and see the same thing. Shirts soaked through, helmets dripping, faces glistening with sweat that never dries. You don't talk much. Words take energy, and energy is something you can't waste. By now, you've been awake less than an hour, but you already feel worn down. The day hasn't even begun, and yet you carry the weight of the night with you. The itching bites, the damp uniform, the heavy gear, the endless buzzing and dripping sounds. You don't wake up in the jungle. You just continue surviving in it. The difference between night and morning isn't comfort. It's just another round of the same fight. Against the heat, the damp, the insects, and the slow grind of exhaustion that eats at you more reliably than bullets. And as you sling your pack over your shoulders and begin to move deeper into the green wall ahead, you already know the jungle will be with you every step of the way, pressing in, dragging you down, and reminding you that out here, the land itself is always the first enemy. The air never lets you forget where you are. By the time the day is fully underway, it feels like the jungle itself is trying to crush you with its weight. The heat doesn't arrive gradually. It's already waiting when you wake up, thick and heavy, clinging to your skin like a second uniform. You don't walk through it. You carry it on your back. Every movement dragging sweat out of your body faster than you can replace it. The moment the sun creeps high enough to be felt through the canopy, the jungle becomes less of a place and more of an oven you can't escape. Your shirt is plastered to your chest, damp from the moment you pulled it on. It never dries. Nothing ever dries here. Sweat soaks into the fabric, mixing with yesterday's salt and the faint mildew that grows in the seams. By mid-morning, you can already smell it, the sour odour of clothing that's been wet too long, mixed with gun oil and mud. Every man around you smells the same. There's no escape from it. You don't bother trying to wipe the sweat off your face anymore. Your handkerchief is already soaked, and wiping just smears the grime across your skin. The heat crawls inside your head and doesn't let go. Your helmet traps it, the air beneath it going stale, until your hair is slick, and your scalp feels like it's cooking. You push it back now and then, just to feel a moment of relief. But even the air above your head is no cooler. It's like trading one prison for another. You keep it on anyway, because taking it off isn't an option. Out here, the one time you might slip and leave yourself exposed could be the time something happens, and you don't get second chances. Every breath feels heavy, like you're pulling in steam instead of air. It doesn't fill your lungs so much as smother them. You pant quietly as you move, not from exertion alone, but because your body can't keep up with the demand. Your throat is always dry, no matter how much water you drink. You sip from your canteen, the warm, metallic-tasting liquid doing little more than wetting your tongue, but you ration it anyway. The heat makes you greedy for it, but you can't give in. You never know when the next refill will be safe, and you've seen what happens to men who drink straight from a stream. It's not thirst you fear in the moment, it's what comes after. The jungle magnifies the heat in ways that don't make sense until you're standing in it. The canopy blocks the direct sun, but it also blocks the wind. Air doesn't move here, not in a way you can feel. Instead it traps everything: humidity, warmth, and your own sweat. You don't cool down, you stew. Even in shade, your skin burns. Your body's natural defences, sweating and breathing faster, don't work because there's no evaporation, no circulation. You sweat until your shirt clings, then you sweat more, and the moisture just sits there. Another layer added to the suffocating blanket wrapped around you. It doesn't matter how much you slow your pace. The heat follows. Every step feels heavier than the last. Your legs dragging through mud, vines clinging to your ankles, gear pressing down like extra weight designed to break you. 40, 50, sometimes 60 pounds of packs, weapons and supplies dig into your shoulders. Straps cut into your skin, the damp fabric beneath them rubbing raw until your collarbones are blistered and sore. The sweat running down your back makes it worse, stinging the open patches, soaking into the cloth, and carrying dirt with it until the sores are rubbed deeper. You hear men mutter to themselves, curses slipping out between clenched teeth. Not at the enemy, not even at the mission, but at the air itself. The heat is the enemy you can't fight, can't avoid, can't outthink. You just endure it, step after step, hour after hour. You see men stop to lean against trees, their faces pale despite the sweat pouring off them, their eyes glassy and unfocused. You know the signs. Heat exhaustion creeping in, the body's way of giving up before the mind is ready. You've seen what happens when someone doesn't sit down soon enough. Collapsing in the mud, their body shaking, skin hot to the touch, lips moving, but no words coming out. You pour water on them if you can spare it, fan them with your hands, try to cool them down, but the jungle doesn't care. Out here, overheating isn't rare. It's daily life. Your boots feel heavier with every mile. Inside them, your socks are soaked, not just from rain or mud, but from the sweat pouring down your legs. The heat doesn't stop at your skin. It seeps into your muscles, weighing them down, turning every movement into work. Even simple things: lifting your rifle, adjusting your helmet, bending to check your footing, cost more energy than they should. You burn through your reserves faster than you can replace them, and you can feel it happening. Your stomach growls, but your body doesn't want food. It wants relief. But there isn't any. The insects are worse in the heat. Mosquitoes swarm more aggressively, drawn to the moisture on your skin. They buzz around your ears, land on your neck, bite through the fabric stretched tight over your arms. You swat them away, but for every one you kill, 5 more appear. Sweat runs into your eyes, burning, blinding you for a moment until you rub it away with the back of your dirty hand. Ants crawl up your legs if you stop too long, their tiny jaws biting into the tender spots behind your knees. Leeches drop from branches above, attracted by your warmth, their bodies latching onto your neck or arms before you even feel it. The heat fuels them just as much as it drains you. You glance around, and everyone else is suffering the same way. Helmets tilted forward to block the glare. Shirts unbuttoned at the top to let a little air in, though it doesn't help. Faces glisten with sweat, streaked with mud and grime. Hands grip weapons tightly, not because of an immediate threat, but because letting go would mean admitting how heavy everything feels. No one complains out loud for long. The jungle eats complaint as easily as it eats energy. Eventually, you just stop wasting breath. You can't tell time here by the usual signs. The sun doesn't shine directly above you, and shadows don't fall cleanly on the ground. The jungle filters everything, so the day feels endless. You measure time instead by your body. How much sweat has soaked your shirt, how many times you've emptied your canteen, how heavy your legs feel. Hours blur together, because there's no relief, no change, just a steady grind of heat pressing down and pulling at you. Even when you stop to rest, the heat doesn't ease. Sitting in the mud or leaning against a tree gives your legs a break, but your body keeps cooking. You take off your helmet for a moment, wipe your face, and put it back on, the air around you as stifling as ever. You check your gear, not because you need to in the moment, but because it gives your hand something to do. Otherwise, you'd just sit there, listening to the sweat drip onto the ground, waiting for the strength to return to your limbs. The nights don't save you either. The heat doesn't vanish when the sun goes down. It just changes, mixing with the damp coolness that rises from the ground. You still sweat, still itch, still toss and turn in a hammock that feels more like a trap than a bed. The jungle never cools enough to let your body recover. You wake up in the same condition you went to sleep in, sweaty, sore, and already behind on rest. Some men try to joke about it, calling the jungle a sauna, laughing bitterly about how much weight they've lost in sweat alone. But the humour never lasts. Everyone knows what the heat can do. Heat stroke, dehydration, weakness that creeps up slowly until you can't hold your rifle steady. It's not something you can laugh away. It's a reminder that the jungle doesn't just wear you down day by day. It can take you in an afternoon if you're not careful. The worst part isn't even the physical toll. It's the way the heat gets into your mind. You think slower, move slower, react slower. Every decision feels foggy. Every sound takes longer to register. You find yourself staring at the ground longer than you should, or forgetting why you stopped in the first place. The enemy is out there somewhere, maybe watching, maybe waiting, but half the time you're too drained to care. The jungle doesn't just attack your body. It dulls your edge, softens your focus, and makes you vulnerable in ways a bullet never could. So you keep moving, because stopping means giving in. You push through the heat, step after step, wiping sweat from your face, and shifting the weight of your gear to ease the ache in your shoulders. You listen to the jungle, but half the time all you hear is the pounding of your own heartbeat in your ears, thudding in rhythm with every laboured breath. The heat doesn't end. It doesn't give you a break. It stays with you, relentless, until you forget what it felt like to be cool, until you can't remember the last time you breathed air that didn't burn going down. And as the day drags on, you realise this isn't unusual. This is normal. The jungle is always this hot, always this heavy, always this punishing. The heat doesn't end. It just waits for you to wear down enough that it can finish what it started. Rain doesn't fall in the jungle the way it does at home. It doesn't come and go in showers. It doesn't sprinkle, and it never feels light. When the monsoon arrives, it's like the sky tears open and dumps everything at once. You don't ease into it. One moment the air is still, heavy with heat, and the next it's hammering down so hard you can't hear the man beside you. The drops are fat and heavy, each one splattering mud across your gear, your clothes, your face. Within minutes, you're soaked through, water running down your sleeves, pooling in the corners of your boots, dripping from the rim of your helmet. Waking up during a monsoon means you probably didn't sleep much to begin with. The rain pounds the canopy all night, echoing through the trees like an endless drum. You lie in your hammock or on the ground, swaying with each gust of wind, listening to the storm roar and waiting for it to stop. Except it doesn't stop. Not for hours, not sometimes for days. The sound becomes part of your dreams, blend in with gunfire or shouted orders until you can't tell what's real and what's imagined. When morning comes, you're not rested. You're already tired, already wet, and already dreading the day ahead. The ground beneath you is no longer solid. Where dirt once held your boots, there's only mud, thick and sucking, grabbing at your feet with every step. It clings to your soles, weighing them down until each foot feels twice as heavy. You try to pull one free, and the mud answers with a wet sucking sound that echoes through the trees. If you slip, you fall hard, your pack driving you deeper into the muck, your rifle splattered in filth that has to be cleaned before it jams. You curse under your breath and drag yourself back up, already soaked, already covered, already wondering how many more miles you can push through this. The rain changes everything you do. It fills the rivers until they overflow their banks, turning paths into streams and fields into swamps. Crossing them means wading chest deep through rushing water, holding your rifle high above your head, your legs straining against the current. Sometimes you feel something brush past you. Fish, debris, maybe a snake. You keep moving, heart hammering, because standing still means the mud will pull you down, and hesitation can cost more than just your footing. Cooking becomes impossible. Fires sputter and die, the wood too soaked to catch no matter how much fuel you use. Food comes cold from a can or a pouch, eaten quickly under ponchos that leak anyway. The rain finds its way through everything, zippers, seams, even sealed containers. You bite into a cracker and it crumbles soggy in your hand, the taste of cardboard mixed with damp mildew. You eat because you need the calories, not because it offers any comfort. Comfort doesn't exist here when the storm sets in. Your gear weighs more than ever. Every strap, every pocket, every fold of fabric is saturated, adding pounds to the load you already struggle with. The pack digs deeper into your shoulders, rubbing raw spots that sting with every movement. Water runs down your back, into your waistband, down your legs, soaking your socks until your feet squish with every step. You know what's coming. Trench foot, blisters, skin peeling away until every step feels like fire. You change socks when you can, but dry ones are a luxury that never lasts. The rain always wins. Visibility drops to nothing in the storm. Sheets of water blur your vision, the mist rising from the ground, hiding shapes in the distance. Every tree looks the same. Every shadow could be something else. You strain your eyes, trying to separate movement from rain. Your nerves stretch thin, because you know the enemy uses the same cover. Out here, you're never sure if what you see is a branch swaying in the wind or a figure crouched low, waiting. The monsoon doesn't just wear you down physically. It plays with your mind, turning every sound, every flicker of movement into another question you don't have the energy to answer. The jungle itself shifts under the weight of the water. Trees crash down without warning, their roots loosened in the soaked soil. Hillsides slide, carrying mud, rocks, and anything unlucky enough to be in the way. Paths vanish overnight, replaced by rivers of sludge that suck at your boots until you think they'll never come free. Even the insects seem to thrive in the wet, swarming in greater numbers, buzzing around your ears and crawling into your clothes. You slap at them, but your hands are slippery, and most of the time you only smear them into the fabric. Sleep is worse than waking. You lie down soaked and you wake up soaked. Water pools in the hammock beneath you, dripping onto your back until you shift, only to feel it gather again in a new place. The rain finds every angle, every weakness, until you're chilled to the bone despite the heat. Some men try to cover themselves with ponchos, but the weight of the water drags them down, turning them into heavy sheets that trap more than they block. You curl into yourself, shivering even as sweat runs down your chest, your body confused by the mix of hot air and cold water. In the morning, you peel yourself out of the hammock, skin wrinkled and pale from hours of dampness. You tug on socks that never dried, grimacing as you slide your swollen feet into boots that feel like buckets. Blisters burst as you stand, the sting sharp enough to make you wince. You adjust your pack, already heavier than yesterday, and step out into mud that swallows your ankles in the first stride. The rain hasn't stopped, and you know it won't stop soon. This is the monsoon. It doesn't pass. It lingers, it punishes, it drains. The sound of it drowns out everything else. Orders shouted from a few feet away are lost in the roar. The constant drumming on the leaves, the splashing of boots in mud, the sloshing of water through gear. It fills your ears until you can't think straight. Sometimes you wonder if the enemy is even firing at you, because you wouldn't hear it until it was too late. Other times you move in silence, convinced that the storm is hiding someone else's footsteps. The rain makes everyone paranoid. It makes you question what you hear, what you see, what you know. And when it finally lets up, it doesn't feel like relief. The mud remains, the ground still soft and treacherous, the rivers still swollen and raging. The air grows heavier, steam rising from the earth until you're walking through a fog that clings to your face and makes every breath thick. The silence after the storm is almost worse, broken only by the dripping of water from every surface, each drop falling with the precision of a clock. It reminds you that the rain isn't gone, it's just waiting to start again. There's no dry season in your mind anymore. The monsoon becomes the only season that matters. It dictates how you move, how you eat, how you sleep, how you survive. It turns the jungle from hostile to unlivable, from difficult to nearly impossible. And as you slog forward, boots caked in mud, shoulders aching under the weight of your drenched pack, you realise that here, in this place, even the sky itself feels like an enemy. When the day finally ends, there's no real comfort waiting for you. No bed, no pillow, no sheets to crawl under. Just a strip of fabric strung between two trees, swaying slightly in the heavy night air. A hammock seems simple enough, something you might associate with a lazy afternoon back home. Out here, it's the only thing standing between you and the jungle floor, and even then it never feels safe. You climb into it carefully, because the straps holding it up are already fraying, soaked from days of rain, and you've seen more than one man tumble to the ground when his weight pulled them loose. The first problem is balance. With a rifle, a pack, and a body that doesn't bend the way it should after hours of slogging through mud, lowering yourself into a hammock feels like a tactical operation. One wrong shift and the whole thing flips, spilling you sideways into the dirt, your gear scattered, your pride bruised in front of the others. You learn to ease in slowly, careful not to tilt too far, adjusting yourself inch by inch until you're lying flat, staring up into the darkness of the canopy. By the time you've managed it, sweat is already dripping into your eyes, and you wonder why you bothered in the first place. The netting draped over the hammock is meant to be protection, but it's never perfect. Gaps open up where the mesh doesn't seal tightly, and that's all it takes for mosquitoes to find their way in. You hear them whining near your ear, the pitch rising as they circle closer. One lands, then another, and soon you're slapping at your skin in the dark, trying to crush them before they sink in. You miss more often than you hit, and the bites swell into welts that itch until you can't stand it. You pull the net tighter, but they always find a way. The air inside the hammock is stifling, and the fabric wraps around you, trapping the heat, holding it in like a cocoon. You shift to let air in, and the mosquitoes swarm. You seal it tighter, and you sweat until your uniform clings to your chest, your back, your legs. It's a choice between suffocating in your own body heat or being eaten alive. Most nights you end up with both. The hammock sways as you toss and turn, the ropes creaking with every movement, each sound reminding you how thin the line is between being suspended above the ground and being dropped back onto it. Then there are the leeches. They don't just cling to your legs during the day. They fall from branches at night, tiny black worms that wriggle through the gaps in the net and drop onto your skin. You wake to a wet sensation on your ankle, reach down, and find one swollen with your blood, its body slick and soft under your fingers. You pull it off and flick it away, but more always appear. Some men burn them off with cigarettes, but that just leaves burns to go along with the bites. You get used to the sight of bloodstains on your socks, your sheets, your skin. Noise makes sleep almost impossible. The jungle doesn't quiet down after dark. It grows louder. Frogs croak in a chorus that drowns out your thoughts. Insects buzz in waves that rise and fall like static, and unseen animals call out from deep within the trees. Sometimes it's a scream that doesn't sound like anything you've heard before. Sometimes it's a rustle in the leaves nearby, heavy enough to make you grip your rifle in the dark. You lie there, eyes wide, listening, wondering if it's just another animal or something worse. The hammock sways gently, but it doesn't comfort you. It feels like you're dangling, suspended and exposed, waiting for something to find you. Rain is the worst. When the storm starts, the drops hammer against the netting, soaking through until water drips onto your face, your arms, your chest. The hammock sags under the weight, the fabric cold and heavy, pressing against your back until you feel like you're lying in a puddle. You shift to escape it, but the water follows, running down your neck, pooling under your legs. You try to sleep through it, but every drop that lands on you jolts you awake again. By morning, your clothes are wetter than when you lay down, and the ground beneath you is a churned mess of mud that splashes up onto the sides of the hammock. The smell around you is unbearable. Sweat trapped in the fabric, mildew growing in the seams, mud clinging to every strap and buckle. Your boots sit on the ground below, already filling with insects. Ants crawl inside, searching for scraps of food, and in the morning you have to shake them out before putting them back on. Sometimes you don't notice one or two that remain, and they bite into your toes as you march, leaving you limping before the day even begins. There's no privacy. Hammocks are strung side by side, stretched between trees in small clearings. You can hear every cough, every groan, every muttered curse from the men around you. Someone shifts and the ropes creak. Someone scratches and the sound echoes. If one man snores, the whole camp listens. You close your eyes, but you never feel alone. You're surrounded not just by your unit, but by the jungle pressing in on all sides. Sleep itself is shallow. You drift in and out, never reaching the kind of rest that restores you. Dreams are broken by the slap of rain, the whine of mosquitoes, the sudden crack of a branch falling nearby. You wake with your heart racing, rifle clutched tight, eyes scanning the darkness for movement. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's something. You never know until it's too late. That uncertainty keeps you half awake, even when your body is desperate to shut down. The worst nights are when you don't trust the hammock at all. The straps creak too loudly, the knots feel loose, and you spend the night tense, waiting for the moment you'll drop. Some men tie theirs too high, and when they fall, the impact knocks the wind out of them, leaves them lying in the mud, gasping. Others tie theirs too low, and they wake to find rats crawling over them, attracted by the scraps of food tucked away in their packs. The hammock is never just a bed. It's another risk, another reminder that out here, even resting can turn against you. By morning, you feel worse than when you lay down. Your body aches from the awkward position, your back stiff, your shoulders sore from curling tight against the cold. You stand slowly, stretching joints that crack and protest, pulling your damp boots back on with a grimace. You pack the hammock, rolling up the wet fabric and shoving it into your already heavy load. The straps drip onto your uniform, spreading another layer of dampness across your chest. You sling your pack over your shoulders, shift your rifle into place, and look around at the others. No one looks rested. Everyone carries the same hollow eyes, the same slumped shoulders, the same weight of another night endured, but not escaped. And as you fall into line, stepping back into the mud, the jungle waiting ahead, you already know the hammock will be there, waiting again tonight. Not as a refuge, not as comfort, but as another test you'll have to get through before you face whatever comes with the morning. The jungle never lets you forget that you're not welcome. Even when the firefights are far away, even when the rain eases up for a few hours, there's always something crawling, buzzing, or biting. It isn't just uncomfortable. It's constant, unavoidable, and exhausting. You don't get to put it out of your mind. Every few minutes, something reminds you it's there, sinking its teeth or its stinger into your skin, draining your strength, drop by drop, bite by bite. Mosquitoes are everywhere. They don't wait for dusk the way they do at home. Here, they swarm all day, clouds of them rising from puddles, buzzing near your ears, landing in the corners of your eyes, drilling through cloth like it isn't even there. The sound of them becomes part of your life. A high-pitched whine that circles your head, louder in the moments when you're already too tired to move. You slap your arm, your neck, your leg, and for every one you kill, 10 more settle. The bites swell, red welts that itch until you're raw from scratching. You smear repellent on your skin, but it melts away in the sweat within minutes, leaving you exposed again. The danger isn't just the itching, it's the sickness that rides with them. Malaria, dengue fever, Japanese encephalitis, all carried on wings the size of a pin. You never see it coming until the fever takes hold. One moment you're marching, sweating like everyone else, and the next you're shaking uncontrollably, your body burning hot even in the downpour, your teeth chattering while sweat runs off you in rivers. Some men collapse right there in the mud, unable to take another step. Others try to push on, but the chills, the cramps, the blinding headaches tear them down faster than bullets. The pills they give you help, but only if you take them religiously. And even then, they're no guarantee. Every mosquito bite is a roll of the dice, and the dice are loaded against you. Then there are the leeches. They don't buzz. They don't warn you. They don't even hurt when they attach. You only know they're there when you see the blood running down your leg, soaking into your sock, or when you feel the soft, rubbery body clinging to your skin. They wait in the mud, in puddles, in streams, stretching themselves out like strands of black string until they sense warmth. The moment you step near, they latch on, slipping under your clothing, working their way into your boots, your waistband, even the folds of your neck. They feed quietly, swelling as they drink, their bodies growing thick and slick. You peel them off when you find them, but they leave wounds that don't stop bleeding, open sores that fester in the damp. The worst are the leeches that drop from the trees. You're marching, eyes scanning the ground, and then you feel something cold slide across your collar. You reach up, fingers closing around a wriggling, bloated shape. By the time you rip it off, it's already fed enough to leave a stain across your chest. You flick it away, but another one falls minutes later. The jungle rains bloodsuckers just as much as water. At night, they wriggle into hammocks, slipping past nets, finding their way to ankles and wrists. You wake with the sheet spotted red, your skin raw, the itch impossible to ignore. Flies are their own kind of torment. Big ones that land heavy, buzzing around your face and hands. Smaller ones that gather in clouds over food or wounds. You swat them away, but they return immediately, drawn to sweat, to blood, to anything that smells of life. They crawl into your ears, your nostrils, the corners of your mouth when you try to eat. They lay eggs in open cuts, and you've seen the result. Maggots squirming under bandages, eating away at flesh that should have been healing. The sight is enough to make you sick, but there's no escape from it. Flies outnumber you 1,000 to 1, and they never give you peace. Ants build their homes in every tree and under every patch of ground. Some are tiny, barely visible until you feel them biting in waves across your ankles. Others are larger, red and aggressive, swarming out the moment you disturb their mound. You sit for a moment of rest and feel them crawling up your legs, their jaws sharp enough to pierce through fabric. By the time you notice, they're already biting in dozens, leaving welts that burn long after they're brushed away. Some soldiers joke about fire ants being worse than bullets, but the laughter fades quickly when you see a man stripped of rest, covered in bites, scratching until his skin bleeds. Spiders hide in boots, under tarps, in the folds of your hammock. Some are harmless, others aren't. The bites swell, spreading heat and pain up your arm or leg, slowing you down just when you need to move fast. Scorpions crawl through gear left on the ground overnight, their stings sharp and sudden, leaving a man gasping in pain for hours. You shake out your boots every morning, check your bedding every night, but there's no way to check everything. Sooner or later, something gets through. Even the smallest bites turn dangerous here. The constant dampness keeps wounds from closing. A scratch from a thorn, a nip from a rat, an insect bite, it festers, swelling with infection until your whole limb aches. You smear ointment when you have it, but supplies run low, and sometimes there's nothing to do but watch it spread. Fever follows, then weakness, then the sickening realization that the jungle itself is rotting you from the inside out. At night, the biting doesn't stop. If anything, it gets worse. The mosquitoes rise in thicker swarms, the leeches drop more often, the rats scurry closer, gnawing at straps, nibbling at crumbs, sometimes taking flesh if they find it exposed. You try to cover yourself, but the air inside the hammock grows hotter, the netting suffocates you, and you end up leaving gaps that let the insects in. You lie awake, scratching, swatting, listening to the rustle of unseen creatures around you. Sleep never comes easy. When it does, it's broken by the itch, the sting, the soft crawl of something moving across your skin. You wake up covered in welts, blood stains and scabs that you didn't have the night before. Your arms and legs look like maps drawn in red, each mark a reminder of the night's battles you didn't even realise you were fighting. Some men stop scratching altogether, too tired to care. They let the bites fester, let the blood run, their eyes hollow from exhaustion. Others scratch until they bleed, desperate for a moment's relief, tearing open skin that will only invite more infection. The jungle never runs out of things to bite you. It doesn't matter how careful you are, how often you check, how tightly you tie the net. Something always finds its way in. Day after day, night after night, it feeds on you piece by piece, until you start to wonder if the land itself isn't just alive, but hungry. The jungle doesn't just attack your body with heat and insects. It gets into your nose and stays there, a constant reminder that everything around you is decaying, including you. Smell becomes part of life here, not something you notice once in a while, but something that's always pressing at the back of your throat, filling every breath, sticking to every piece of fabric you carry. The first thing you smell when you wake is yourself. Sweat soaked into your shirt and pants. Not from hours of labour, but simply from lying in the thick night air. It doesn't matter how often you wash your uniform. Within an hour of putting it on, the dampness returns, and with it the sour, sharp odour of sweat mixed with mildew. Your gear smells the same. Straps holding the salt from yesterday's march, padding wet from rain that never dried, the whole pack carrying the heavy, stale stench of damp cloth. You get used to it, but not in a way that makes it disappear. It just becomes part of the background, something you know will be there until the day you leave. Layered over that is the jungle's natural scent, which is anything but fresh. The ground is littered with rotting vegetation, leaves that fall and never dry, trees that collapse and dissolve into black soil, vines that mould in the constant dampness. Every step you take stirs it up, the smell of decay rising with the mud that clings to your boots. It isn't the sweet smell of compost in a garden. It's harsher, more suffocating, mixed with the ammonia of animal droppings and the faint metallic bite of stagnant water. You breathe it in with every stride until it feels like it's coating your lungs as much as your skin. Rot doesn't stop at plants. Animals die here too, often unseen, their bodies sinking into the mud or caught in roots. You catch the smell long before you see the source. A sharp, sickly stench that cuts through even the damp air. Sometimes it's a bird or a snake, sometimes something larger, bloated and half hidden under the brush. Flies swarm over it, the buzz loud enough to hear before you spot the carcass. You keep walking because there's nothing else to do, but the smell follows you long after you've left it behind. It clings to your nostrils, makes your stomach churn, mixes with the sweat already dripping down your face. Your own body adds to the mix. Cuts and sores fester in the heat, oozing beneath bandages that are never truly sterile. Infections set in quickly, and the smell of pus lingers on your skin, in your clothes, on the rags you use to wipe it away. You clean as best you can, but supplies are limited, and the jungle never gives you time to heal. The smell of sickness hangs over men who've been bitten too many times, who've walked too long with wet feet, who've fought off fevers that left them too weak to wash. You know it when you're close to them. The jungle strips away privacy, and smell is another way it announces how badly it's winning. Mixed with all of this is the ever-present odour of gun oil. Rifles are cleaned every day, sometimes twice a day, because in this environment, rust sets in within hours. You strip the weapon down, run the rag along the barrel, coat it in oil that shines slick under the dim light. The smell of it sticks to your hands, sharp and chemical, mixing with the sweat and dirt until it becomes another layer of your own scent. Packs reek of it, pouches too, and every man around you carries the same smell. It's comforting in one way, a reminder that the weapon will fire when needed, but it also makes the air heavier, the chemical tang mixing with the rot until you don't know where one ends and the other begins. Food adds its own notes. Cans opened and eaten cold leave traces that don't go away. Meat and beans spilled on your shirt. Crackers turning soggy in the rain. Coffee powder dusting your fingers. All of it adds to the stew of smells you carry. Ants swarm to the crumbs. Flies circle the tins. And within minutes, the leftovers turn sour. You bury what you can, but the jungle uncovers it quickly, and the stink rises again. Then there's smoke. Fires are rare during the wet season, but when one manages to catch, it sends up a heavy, acrid smell. The damp wood smouldering more than burning. The smoke clings to your clothes, mixing with everything else, a bitter reminder of a small comfort you can't really enjoy. Cigarettes light more easily, and their sharp, sweet odour cuts briefly through the rot, but it doesn't last. The jungle swallows it, replacing it with the same damp heaviness you can't escape. Even your breath becomes part of the mix. The constant rations, the untreated water, the infections in your mouth, they leave your breath sour, metallic, sometimes foul enough that you taste it yourself when you speak. No one says anything. Everyone smells the same. You learn not to notice, or at least not to comment. But when you pause, when the rain stops and the air goes still, the weight of it presses in on you again, reminding you that this place doesn't allow freshness, doesn't allow relief. The smell follows you into sleep. You lie in your hammock, damp fabric around you, and the air inside is thick with it. Sweat rising off your chest, mildew from the straps, the faint chemical bite of oil on your hands, the sour tang of your socks drying near your head. You close your eyes, but the smell doesn't fade. It drifts into your dreams, mixing with the sounds of insects and rain, until you wake unsure if it's morning or night, only certain that the stench will be waiting for you again. You get used to it, but not in a way that brings peace. You stop reacting, stop gagging when the wind shifts and carries rot into your face. You stop grimacing when you peel off your shirt and the smell of mildew rises with it. You stop noticing the gun oil on your hands, the sweat dripping into your mouth, the blood and pus on the bandages you change. It all blends together into one steady, choking presence, a smell you can't wash away, can't escape, can't forget. Even years later, men say they carried it home, tucked into their gear, embedded in their memories. A jungle smell that never truly left. Thirst is the one enemy you never stop thinking about. Every step in the jungle drains you, sweat pouring out faster than you can replace it. You drink whenever you can, but every swallow comes with doubt. The water around you looks inviting, clear streams running through the brush, rain dripping into puddles, rivers winding between trees. But here, looks don't mean safety. Every drop is suspect. Your canteen hangs heavy on your belt, and you guard it like a lifeline. The water inside is warm, flat, tinged with the metallic taste of the container, and the bitter aftertaste of purification tablets. You force it down anyway, rationing each swallow, because you know there's no guarantee you'll find clean water again that day. The jungle tricks you into thinking it's abundant. It rains until the ground is flooded, until rivers swell and puddles stretch for miles. But drinking straight from those sources can put you on your back faster than a bullet. Upstream, you never know what's there. A rotting animal caught in the roots, leaking disease into the current. Human waste dumped during a long march. Insects breeding in shallow pools, their larvae wriggling just beneath the surface. Parasites too small to see, waiting for a chance to burrow into your stomach. You learn quickly that clear doesn't mean safe. Men who risk a sip often pay for it. Cramps hit first, sharp and sudden, bending you double in the mud. Then comes the fever, the sweating, the endless trips to whatever counts as a latrine. Dysentery can drain you to nothing in days, leaving you too weak to carry your pack, too dehydrated to stand, too vulnerable to keep up. Out here, that kind of weakness can be a death sentence. Rainwater seems like the safer option. You tie ponchos into crude funnels, catch the runoff from trees, let it fill your canteens drop by drop. It tastes fresher, lighter, not burdened with the metallic bite of tablets. But it isn't perfect. Leaves rot above you, birds nest in branches, insects drown in the makeshift collection. The water looks clean, but by the time it reaches your mouth, it carries the same risks as the streams. You drink it anyway, because thirst doesn't give you choices. Boiling is the safest method, but fire isn't always possible. The wood is too wet, the rain too heavy, the smoke too dangerous if you're trying not to be seen. When you do manage it, the water comes out scalding hot. A relief for a moment, then just another burden to carry. It cools slowly, the canteen warming your hip for hours as you march, and by the time you drink it, the taste is flat and stale again. Even the canteens themselves betray you. The caps crack, the seals weaken, and the warm, damp air turns the inside into a breeding ground for mould. You rinse them when you can, but the sour smell never fully disappears. Some men swear the tablets don't kill everything, that the bugs inside grow immune to the chemicals. You hear the stories and you wonder, especially when the stomach cramps come back despite all the precautions. Dehydration creeps in faster than you expect. You feel it in your lips first, cracked and dry even in the constant humidity. Then in your tongue, thick and heavy, sticking to the roof of your mouth. Your head throbs, your eyes blur, your legs stumble more than usual. You take a drink, but the water feels like it evaporates before it reaches your stomach. The jungle drains it out through sweat before your body can even use it. You drink again, more than you should, and you feel the weight of the empty canteen mocking you for the rest of the march. Some men gamble with the rivers. They scoop handfuls when the officers aren't looking, desperate for relief, the taste of cold water too tempting to resist. Sometimes they're lucky, nothing happens, and they laugh about it. Other times, you watch them slow down within hours, their faces pale, their bodies racked with cramps. You know what's coming then? The fever, the shakes, the days of weakness. You carry their gear for them if you can, but deep down you know the jungle doesn't forgive mistakes like that. Bathing in the water brings its own risks. You strip down, wade in, and feel the temporary relief as the mud and sweat wash away. For a few minutes you almost feel clean, then you feel the leeches sliding onto your legs, the unseen parasites wriggling against your skin. You come out scratching, bleeding, worse than before. The brief comfort isn't worth the price. Some men stop trying altogether, choosing to stay filthy rather than invite more infection. Even when the water is safe, it never tastes the way you want it to. Always warm, always flat, always carrying the ghost of chemicals or mildew. You dream of ice, of cold glasses clinking in the heat, of water you can drink without thinking twice. Instead you choke down another mouthful of bitterness, grimacing as it hits your stomach, and you keep walking. The jungle makes sure you never trust it. Not the rain, not the rivers, not even the canteen hanging from your belt. Every drop is a question, every sip a risk. You need it to live, but it can kill you just as easily. And that knowledge never leaves your mind, even as you swallow, even as you ration, even as the sweat pours out of you faster than you can drink it back in. Food is never about pleasure here. It's not about variety or taste or comfort. It's about calories, about putting something in your stomach so your body has enough fuel to keep moving through mud and heat. You open a ration pack not because you're hungry, but because you know you have to. Hunger fades in the jungle. Thirst, exhaustion, pain, those demand your attention first. Eating becomes a chore, another duty you perform whether you want to or not. Sea rations come in cans, each one heavy, clunky, sealed tight with a lid you pry open using a tool that always seems to go missing when you need it most. Inside, the food is dense, overcooked, and uniform in texture no matter what the label claims. Meat and beans, ham and eggs, spaghetti and meatballs. The names suggest meals, but what you pour out onto your mess tin looks more like paste. Greasy, pale, sometimes swimming in water or congealed fat, always with a smell that makes you hesitate before the first bite. The crackers are hard enough to chip a tooth, chalky and dry, tasting more like cardboard than flour. You break them up into the can to soak up the grease, trying to trick yourself into thinking it's soup. The chocolate bars are better until you realise they've melted into a block of sticky sludge inside the wrapper. You scrape at it with your fingers, smearing it across your face as you eat, the sweetness a rare moment of relief before it vanishes. The fruit, when you get it, comes out limp and sour, floating in syrup that tastes like tin. You eat it anyway, because you know you won't see fresh fruit for weeks. The jungle doesn't let you eat in peace. Flies arrive within seconds, landing on your hands, your food, your face. Ants swarm the moment crumbs hit the ground, crawling up your legs if you're not careful. You shovel food in quickly, not because you enjoy it, but because you don't want to share it with the insects. Sometimes you don't even sit. You crouch in the mud, tin balanced on your knee, spoon clattering against the metal as you eat as fast as you can. Warm water is your only drink. Coffee powder comes in little packets, but making it requires hot water, and that's rare. When you do get it, the taste is bitter, gritty, burned if you left it too long on the flame. It jolts you awake for a while, but it doesn't erase the exhaustion. Some men drink it cold, stirring it straight into canteen water, choking down the sludge at the bottom just to get the caffeine. Others skip it entirely, their stomachs too weak to handle more chemicals. Rations aren't just unappetizing, they're unpredictable. Sometimes the cans are expired, their contents swollen and sour. You pry one open and the smell hits you immediately, rank, metallic, unfit for eating. You gag, but you eat it anyway, because there's nothing else. Later, your stomach cramps, twisting until you curl forward in the mud. Diarrhea follows, leaving you weaker, dehydrated, slower. You know you should have thrown the can away, but you couldn't. Hunger makes the decision for you. Local food is worse. Villagers sometimes trade, offering rice, vegetables, or meat, but you never know how it was prepared. Boiled water might not have boiled long enough. Meat might have sat too long in the heat. Vegetables might have been rinsed in the same streams you've been told never to drink from. You take the chance anyway, desperate for something different, something that doesn't come out of a tin. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it leaves you doubled over for days, regretting every bite. The smells linger long after the meal is gone. Grease clings to your fingers. The metallic tang of the can seeps into your clothes. The sour aftertaste of preservatives coats your tongue. Brushing your teeth isn't an option. You rinse with canteen water if you can spare it, but mostly you swallow it down and march on, your stomach heavy with food that never feels like nourishment. Your body begins to change. You lose weight fast, muscle melting away, as sweat drains you quicker than food can replace it. Your face grows hollow, your belt tighter, your uniform looser around the waist. The rations keep you alive, but they don't keep you strong. Every man feels it. Bones showing under skin. Energy fading quicker each day. The food fills your stomach, but it doesn't restore you. It just keeps you moving one more mile, one more hour, one more day. Some men hoard the parts they like. The candy bars, the peanut butter packets, the cigarettes tucked into certain boxes. They trade for them, stash them away, savour them when the jungle feels unbearable. A single chocolate bar can lift a man's spirits more than a whole can of meat. Others throw away what they can't stand. Lima beans, fruit cake, anything too foul to force down. The jungle doesn't waste it. Ants, rats and flies clean up what the men refuse, leaving nothing behind. Even when you eat carefully, even when you avoid spoiled cans and strange food, your stomach rebels. The constant heat, the damp air, the stress, all of it tears into your gut. You wake in the night with cramps, you squat in the mud at dawn, you march with your insides twisting. Everyone suffers it, no one escapes. It's not a matter of if, but how badly and how often. The jungle doesn't just attack your skin or your lungs. It gets inside you, breaking you down from within, leaving you weaker with each day that passes. Food becomes another gamble. Each meal is a question. Will this keep me going, or will it knock me flat? You never know until it's too late. So you open the can, you force down the contents, you wash it with a swallow of warm water, and you wait. Sometimes you feel fine, if fine means bloated and tired instead of sick. Other times, you feel your body tighten within an hour, the cramps twisting until you can't straighten your back. You laugh about it when you can, but you know the truth. Out here, every meal is stomach roulette, and the house always wins. Your boots are supposed to be the one thing that keeps you connected to the ground, the one piece of gear that protects you from the worst of the jungle floor. But out here, in this heat, in this endless rain, your boots don't protect you. They betray you. They become another enemy, another weight dragging you down, another reminder that nothing you carry into this place survives unchanged. The first thing you notice is the weight. A new pair of boots is heavy enough when it's dry. Out here, they're never dry. They're sponges strapped to your feet, soaked through before you've taken your first step of the day. You tie the laces, feel the squish as your heel presses down, and already you know what's coming. The sound follows you everywhere. Squish, squelch, squish. The rhythm of wet boots in wet mud. At first you try to ignore it. After a few hours, it drives you half mad, the sound of water trapped in leather, mocking you with every step. They never dry because there's no such thing as dry in the jungle. The air is too wet, the ground too wet, the sky too wet. You hang them up at night, hoping a few hours off your feet will make a difference. But the morning always greets you with the same damp weight. If it rains, they're worse. If it doesn't rain, the sweat dripping down your legs soaks into them anyway. Even when you're standing still, the jungle finds a way to keep them saturated. The water doesn't just sit, it festers. It mixes with dirt, with sweat, with tiny fragments of leaves and roots. It seeps into the seams, loosens the stitches, softens the leather until it turns spongy and weak. Mould grows in the corners, a faint green film that spreads if you don't scrape it off. The smell is sharp, sour, unmistakable. Some men compare it to old milk. Others say it's worse, because at least milk eventually disappears. Boots just keep smelling, the odour baked into the leather until it clings to your socks, your pack, even your hammock. You can smell them before you put them on, and you can smell them long after you take them off. The insides become slick with rot. You slide your feet in and feel the slime against your skin, the fabric of your socks sliding against the wet surface. At first it's just uncomfortable, then it becomes dangerous. The dampness grinds grit against your heels, against your toes, raising blisters that swell and pop. The raw skin underneath rubs with every step, torn open again and again until it weeps blood into the fabric. You change socks, thinking it will help, but within an hour they're soaked again, the fresh fabric already ruined, the relief gone. Some men try to dry their boots by fire. They set them close to the flames, watching the steam rise in thick white curls. But the leather shrinks, hardens, cracks, the soles warp. The heat that should save them destroys them faster. You see men with boots split open at the seams, the stitching unravelling, the soles flapping loose with every step. They tie them together with laces, with wire, with anything they can find. But nothing lasts. Out here, nothing ever does. And then there are the creatures that call your boots home. Ants crawl inside overnight, chewing at the fabric, leaving bites that swell red and painful. Spiders curl up in the toes, waiting to be shaken out in the morning. Centipedes wriggle in, their sharp legs scratching at your skin if you don't notice in time. Rats chew at the edges, drawn by the salt of your sweat, leaving ragged holes in the leather. You wake to find the damage done, another patch gone, another weak spot exposed. You shake them out, patch them up, slide your feet back in, and pretend they'll last another day. But the worst isn't the boots. It's what they do to your feet. Trench foot isn't just a story from the old wars. It's alive here, thriving in the same conditions. At first it feels like numbness, your toes buzzing faintly, the skin pale and swollen. Then the cracks open. Small at first, like paper cuts, then deeper, splitting wide enough that you wince every time you take a step. Infection follows. The smell changes, turning sweet and sickly, the kind of smell you can taste in the back of your throat. You peel off your socks and pieces of skin come with them, hanging in strips, raw flesh exposed underneath. You wrap them in whatever you can, rags, spare cloth, even leaves. But the damp gets in anyway. The jungle always gets in. Toenails turn black, lift from the nail bed, fall off one by one. You stop worrying about keeping them trimmed, because soon there won't be any left. Your heels split until every step feels like walking on glass. The arches of your feet ache from carrying weight they weren't built to carry, the mud sucking at them until the tendons stretch and scream. And still, you march, because you don't have a choice. The medics tell you to change socks twice a day, to air out your feet, to keep them dry whenever you can. You laugh at the advice, because dry doesn't exist here. You follow it anyway, wringing out socks that drip brown water, rubbing your feet with powders that clump in the damp, then sliding them back into boots that squish the moment you stand. It's routine, a ritual you know won't work, but one you perform because the alternative is giving up. And giving up isn't an option. Every man carries the same problem. You hear the groans when someone pulls off his boots, the sharp intake of breath when raw skin peels away with a sock. You see the swollen toes, the cracked heels, the angry red streaks of infection crawling up calves. No one has pristine feet here. No one escapes. Even the strongest men limp after weeks in the jungle, their boots chewing at them until every step is a punishment. At night the pain doesn't ease. You lie in your hammock, feet throbbing, the sores burning in the heat. You try to elevate them, but the hammock sways, the blood pools anyway, and the ache grows worse. You dream of walking barefoot on cool grass, of slipping into clean shoes, of dry socks fresh from a drawer. You wake up to find your feet swollen, your boots waiting, the smell sour, the leather slick. You put them back on and the cycle begins again. The jungle doesn't need to shoot you to stop you. It just waits patient, letting the boots do the work. It knows that sooner or later your feet will give out, that every mile will cut deeper until you can't walk anymore. You push forward anyway because the alternative is staying still, and staying still in this place is worse. You limp, you grit your teeth, you curse under your breath, but you keep moving, boots squelching, socks soaked, feet rotting slowly inside. Even years later, men say they remembered the boots most. Not the firefights, not the helicopters, not the roar of artillery, but the slow, steady torture of rotting leather and ruined feet. The sound of squelching steps, the smell of mildew and blood, the sight of skin peeling off in strips. The jungle stripped everything down, and it started with the ground beneath you. Every step was survival, and every step hurt. The jungle eats skin the same way it eats boots, gear, and weapons. It doesn't matter how tough you are, how careful you try to be, or how much advice you follow. Sooner or later, the constant wet, the constant heat, and the constant filth take their toll. It starts small, just an itch, a rash, a little pain in your foot that you think will pass. But nothing passes here. Everything grows worse. Everything festers. Everything rots if you give it enough time. And in the jungle, time is all you have. Trench foot is the most common, and it doesn't take weeks to set in like it did in the old European wars. Here it can strike in days. Your feet spend every hour soaked, trapped in boots that never dry, squeezed into socks that cling damp and sour to your skin. At first, you just feel numbness, toes losing their sensation, a buzzing at the edges like pins and needles. You ignore it, because what else can you do? You keep marching, hoping it'll fade. Instead, the skin grows pale and waxy, your toes ballooning until they look swollen and rubbery. By the time you pull your socks off, the damage is already done. The skin peels in strips, soft and fragile, raw flesh beneath it red and tender. You try to dry them, but nothing in this place stays dry. By morning the swelling spreads further, the cracks deepen, and every step is pain. The smell gives it away before the sight does. A sweet, sickly odour that clings to socks, to boots, to the air around you. You know it immediately, even before you look. Your feet are rotting while they're still attached, the tissue breaking down from constant exposure. Some men wrap them in bandages, others smear on ointments that clump uselessly in the damp. Nothing works. The jungle doesn't allow healing, it only allows more rot. Marching on trench foot is agony. Every step forces the swollen tissue to bend, the cracks to widen, the sores to grind against wet fabric. Blood seeps into socks, staining them dark, mixing with the mud already inside your boots. You keep moving, because stopping isn't an option, but each mile leaves you limping worse than the one before. Some men can't bear it. They hobble, they collapse, their packs slipping into the mud while they clutch at their ruined feet. Others grit their teeth, trying to hide the pain, knowing that weakness in the jungle can mean being left behind. Then there's the rash. The heat never leaves you alone, and your skin never gets a chance to breathe. Sweat pours down your back, pools in your wetband, soaks into your shirt until it sticks like glue. The constant friction raises red patches that itch, then burn, then blister. The worst is under your arms, between your thighs, around your waist. The fabric rubs raw spots until the skin breaks open. You try to scratch for relief, but your fingernails dig into open wounds, spreading dirt and infection. The itch never ends. Even in your hammock at night, even when you're too tired to move, your body twitches and shifts, desperate to find a position where the rash doesn't scream. But there isn't one. The jungle makes sure every patch of skin becomes a battlefield. Jungle rot is worse. It starts as something simple, a small cut, a scratch from a thorn, a blister from your boots. Back home, it would heal in days. Here it festers. The constant wet keeps the wound open, the dirt fills it, the insects swarm to it. Soon it oozes pus, the skin around it inflamed, red streaks crawling up your leg or arm. You try to clean it, but the water isn't clean, and the bandages are never sterile. The infection spreads anyway, faster than you can keep up with. Men lose chunks of flesh to it, sores eating deeper until muscle is exposed. The smell is unbearable, a rot so strong you can taste it in the back of your throat. The medics do what they can. They cut away dead tissue, scrape at wounds until the raw flesh shines wet underneath, smear on antiseptics that sting worse than the injury itself. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Amputation hangs over the worst cases, the only way to stop the rot from climbing further. The threat is always there, whispered in the back of your mind every time you find a new blister, every time a sore refuses to close. You don't just fear the enemy's bullets, you fear your own body falling apart, one wound at a time. The misery of skin diseases isn't just physical, it eats at your mind. You wake up itching, scratching until your arms are striped with blood. You march with feet that feel like they're splitting open with every step. You lie down at night with sores burning, unable to find rest. The pain is constant, the discomfort unrelenting. There's no break, no relief, no moment where your body feels like it belongs to you anymore. The jungle has claimed it, piece by piece, turning your skin against you. Turn the act of existing into torture. And there's no dignity in it. You share hammocks side by side, you march in lines, you rest in groups. Everyone sees everyone else's suffering. You see men peel socks off and gag at the smell. You see rashes spread across backs and thighs, the skin raw and red, and you see wounds bubbling with pus. Bandages soak through before they can be changed. You hear the groans, the muttered curses, the sharp gasps when someone dips a foot into water too hot or too cold. You know you look the same. You know they see you too. There's no hiding it. Out here, the jungle strips away modesty and privacy, along with everything else. The worst part is how quickly it happens. You can be fine one day and ruined the next. One long march through swamp water. One night spent in soaked socks. One blister ignored. And suddenly you're limping, you're scratching, you're rotting. The jungle doesn't give warnings you can prepare for. It just waits for the moment you're too tired, too distracted, too desperate, and then it takes another piece of you. You learn little rituals to fight it. Changing socks whenever you can, even if they're just as damp as the pair you took off. Sprinkling powder inside your boots, though it clumps and cakes within an hour. Hanging your shirt over a branch, praying for a sliver of sunlight to burn away the mildew. Washing wounds with water you don't trust. Bandaging them with cloth you know isn't sterile. It doesn't stop the rot, but it slows it. And sometimes slowing it is all you can hope for. And still, despite every effort, you feel your body failing. You watch as skin sloughs off your heels, as toenails peel away, as rashes spread faster than you can scratch them. You march anyway, because you have to. You know that out here, the jungle doesn't care if you can't stand, doesn't care if you can't walk. It will chew at you until you're useless, and then it will move on to the next man. The enemy is real, but the jungle is relentless. Bullets come and go. Firefights flare up and die down. But trench foot, heat rash, jungle rot, they're always there. Every man suffers them. Every man fears them. And every man learns the same lesson. The jungle doesn't just fight you with guns. It fights you with your own skin, until even standing on your own 2 feet feels like a battle you're not sure you will win. You can't move through the jungle without thinking about what's moving through it with you. The ground isn't just mud, it's a hunting ground. The trees aren't just cover. They're homes for things that watch you without being seen. Every rustle, every flicker, every shifting shadow can be another reminder that this place is alive in ways you wish it wasn't. It isn't only the heat or the rot or the damp that wears you down. It's the knowledge that at any moment something with fangs, something with venom, something with more patience than you could ever have might be closer than you think. The snakes come first in your mind because they're everywhere. You step carefully, eyes on the ground, but no matter how cautious you are, you can't watch every inch of it. Some blend into the leaves so well that you don't notice until you're already too close. A movement, like a stick shifting, a flicker of scales disappearing into the brush, a head lifting silently just a few feet ahead. The banded crate, its black and yellow warning shining in the dim light, doesn't move fast, but you know better than to test it. The pit vipers lie in wait, curled under roots or hidden beneath fallen branches, striking without warning if you happen to step too near. And the cobras. Everyone hears the stories about them rearing up, hoods flared, their hiss cutting through the insect drone like a knife. You don't need to be bitten to feel fear. Seeing one is enough to leave your hands shaking long after it slips away. The venom is fast, brutal, and unforgiving. A bite from the wrong snake can kill before a medic even has time to reach you. Anti-venom is scarce, and even when it's available, you're miles from help, hours from evacuation, and time isn't on your side. Some bites don't kill, but they maim. Flesh blackens, muscles spasm. The pain is so intense that even the strongest men cry out. You hear the warnings drilled into you. Watch where you step. Don't put your hands where you can't see. Check your boots before sliding them on. But exhaustion makes you careless. One slip, one moment of inattention, and the jungle punishes you. And the snakes don't stay on the ground. Some coil in branches above, dropping down when disturbed. You don't see them until they're hanging, bodies thick as your arm, sliding down tree trunks with a speed that makes your heart pound. The pythons don't carry venom, but they don't need to. Their strength is enough. You hear stories of men dragged half into the underbrush, the coils wrapping tight until ribs cracked. Even when you don't see them, you imagine them. Every rustle overhead, every sway of vines in the rain, every sound in the dark, it all reminds you they could be there. If snakes keep your eyes on the ground, the spiders remind you to look up, to look everywhere. Webs stretch between trees, invisible until you're in them. Sticky threads clinging to your face, wrapping around your hands. You swat at them, panic rising, because you don't know what spun them. Sometimes it's harmless. A spider the size of your palm retreating into the shadows. Other times it's worse. The tarantulas grow big here, thick-bodied, their legs stretching out wide as they cling to bark or creep across the ground. Their bite won't kill you, but the pain will knock you flat, the swelling leaving your hand or foot useless for days. And then there are the smaller ones, the ones you don't notice until too late. A prick on your skin, a red welt rising, a spreading heat that leaves you dizzy. You don't know which species did it, and out here it doesn't matter. What matters is how your body reacts. Some swell, some shake, some collapse, fever rising as the venom courses through them. The medics treat what they can, but most of the time you just wait, sweating, praying the symptoms don't get worse. Scorpions crawl where you least expect them. They hide under packs left on the ground, inside rolled up ponchos, in the folds of clothing that sat too long in the mud. You pick something up and the sting comes fast, sharp enough to make you drop everything. The pain shoots up your arm or leg, leaving you shaking, gasping, clutching at the spot as if pressure alone could ease it. The swelling follows, the skin tight and hot, the ache lasting hours. You try to ignore it, but every movement reminds you it's there. You limp through marches, sweat pouring down your face, your mind fogged with pain. Centipedes are worse in their own way, long, armoured, fast. They slip into boots at night, curl up in bedding, wriggle under shirts hung to dry. Their bite is savage, the pain immediate and overwhelming. You feel it in your bones, a searing fire that spreads through the limb. You yank them off, fling them away, but the damage is done. The jungle doesn't need fangs to break you. Sometimes dozens of tiny legs are enough. It isn't just the venomous creatures that break your will. The sheer size of some of the harmless ones is enough to unnerve you. Spiders as wide as a plate clinging to walls, snakes thicker than your arm sliding across trails, beetles heavy enough to thump when they land on you. They don't always bite, but they don't have to. Living among them, sleeping with them, feeling them crawl across your skin at night, it wears you down. You don't relax, even when you're supposed to. You lie awake in your hammock, flashlight gripped in your hand, scanning the netting for movement. Sleep comes in snatches, broken by the sensation of something crawling where it shouldn't. Men try to joke about it. They tell stories of the biggest snake they ever saw, exaggerating the length, laughing nervously about the spider that dropped on someone's helmet, about the scorpion that ended up in somebody's mess tin. The laughter doesn't last. The reality is too close, too constant. You don't laugh when you hear a scream in the night, followed by the frantic sound of boots stomping in the mud. You don't laugh when you see a man's legs swell until he can't put weight on it. You don't laugh when the medic shakes his head because the anti-venom isn't for that species, and you'll just have to wait it out. The fear becomes background noise. It's always there, like the heat, like the damp, like the smell. You get used to watching every step, shaking out every piece of clothing, checking every corner of your hammock before sliding in. It doesn't make you safe. It just makes you slower, more careful, more tired. The jungle thrives on your exhaustion, waiting for the moment when you skip a step, when you forget, when you trust the wrong patch of ground or the wrong bit of shadow. That's when it reminds you it's alive, that you're not just walking through it, you're trespassing. You carry that thought with you, mile after mile, the snakes sliding silently, the spiders spinning webs in the dark, the scorpions hiding in your gear, the centipedes wriggling in the mud. You don't see them all, but you know they're there. You feel them in every rustle, every tickle on your skin, every movement you can't quite explain. The jungle isn't just a place, it's a collection of crawling nightmares, always waiting, always watching, always closer than you want to believe. The sound of helicopters defines the war as much as the jungle does. The thump of rotor blades carries for miles, cutting through the air like a heartbeat you can feel in your chest. Out here, it's both comfort and terror. A reminder that the sky belongs to you, but the ground doesn't. You look up when you hear it, shielding your eyes from the glare that filters through the canopy, searching for the dark shape that promises resupply, evacuation, or fire support. You know it's there before you see it. The jungle vibrates with the rhythm. Branches sway, birds scatter. For a moment, the endless noise of insects is drowned out by something louder, something mechanical, something that feels like power. But the sky is only half the story. On the ground, silence rules. You move through mud, through vines, through shadows, your boots sinking with every step, your weapon heavy in your hands. You listen for the enemy, but what you hear most is the absence of sound. The jungle can be deafening when it wants to be, filled with buzzing and croaking and dripping, but it knows how to go quiet too. When it does, the silence presses on your ears until they ring. That silence is never empty. It means something's out there. It means someone's waiting. The helicopters make you feel stronger, but only for a moment. You watch them hover above clearings, lowering supplies in heavy nets, the downwash flattening the grass and sending debris flying into your eyes. You reach up to grab the cargo, your arms straining against the pull, your body buffeted by wind that smells of oil and fuel. For a few minutes, it feels like civilization has reached you, like the jungle can't win after all. Then the helicopter lifts away, shrinking into the sky, the sound fading until it's gone. The silence returns, heavier than before. The jungle closes in again, and you're back where you started. Sometimes the helicopters come for casualties. You hear the call go out, the voices rising in urgency, the medic crouched over a man whose uniform is dark with blood. You clear a space, marking it with smoke, watching the canopy shake as the helicopter descends. The noise is overwhelming, rotor wash pounding against your body, dirt whipping into your face. You load the stretcher, hands gripping tight, eyes on the man who might not make it. Then it's gone, lifting away, carrying him out of the jungle and into a world you can't see anymore. You stand there, breathless, ears ringing, and then you march again, because there's nothing else to do. The silence that follows is worse than the noise. It's not just the absence of helicopters, it's the way the jungle seems to swallow every sound, as if it knows you've been reminded of another world, one where the air is clear and the ground is solid. Here the silence isn't peaceful, it's oppressive. You strain to hear something, anything, that tells you what's coming. A snapped twig, a muffled cough, the scrape of metal. But most of the time you hear nothing, and that nothing is louder than gunfire. At night, the helicopters rarely come. The jungle belongs to itself after dark. You lie in your hammock, staring up at the black canopy, wishing for the sound of rotors, wishing for the thrum that would tell you you're not alone. Instead, you listen to the silence between the noises, the long pauses where even the frogs stop croaking. Your heart pounds louder than anything else, and you wonder if the enemy can hear it too. You grip your rifle tighter, your finger resting on the trigger, waiting for something you can't see. The helicopters bring more than supplies. They bring firepower. You've seen them swoop in, the side doors open, gunners leaning out, their weapons rattling like thunder. You feel the rounds tear through trees, hear the branches snap, smell the smoke that rises when rockets strike the ground. For a moment, you think nothing could survive that storm, but the jungle swallows it up, smoke drifting into the canopy, silence returning faster than you thought possible. You step into the wreckage and realise the enemy is gone, melted back into the green, leaving nothing but silence and your own pounding pulse. The noise above contrasts so sharply with the quiet below that it becomes disorienting. You can stand in a clearing, rotor wash whipping your clothes, unable to hear your own voice, and then, minutes later, walk under the trees into silence so deep it feels unnatural. Your ears ring from the transition, straining to catch the smallest noise, every nerve on edge. The silence plays tricks. You think you hear movement. You think you hear whispers. Sometimes you fire, just to be sure. Most of the time, there's nothing there. Just the jungle, waiting. Men grow to crave the sound of helicopters, even when they hate it. It means you're not cut off, not completely lost in the green maze. It means someone knows you're out here. But you never get used to the contrast. The sky belongs to you, the ground doesn't. The helicopters can bring supplies, bring fire, bring a way out, but they can't stay. They hover for minutes, then vanish, leaving you with the silence that feels heavier every time. That silence wears you down. It creeps into your bones, into your mind, until you start hearing things that aren't there. You flinch at shadows, jump at the rustle of leaves, sweat dripping into your eyes as you scan the same patch of ground for movement. Sometimes you think the jungle itself is watching. Sometimes you're right. The enemy moves through it silently, blending into the same shadows, using the same quiet that unnerves you. You don't hear them until it's too late. By then the silence has already turned deadly. And the helicopters remind you of what you left behind. The sound of machines, the smell of fuel, the weight of modern power. But the silence below is the jungle's reminder. No matter how many times the sky opens up, no matter how loud the blades thunder, the ground is still here, still waiting, still patient. You can look up all you want, but you have to live down here. And down here, silence is the rule. The jungle didn't just hide the enemy, it fought for him. Every step you took could be the wrong one, and you never knew it until it was too late. The firefights were sudden, brutal, and loud, but at least you could see them coming. Booby traps gave you nothing. No warning, no chance to fight back. Just one wrong move, one careless step, and the jungle itself came alive against you. The simplest and deadliest were punji sticks. You heard about them before you saw them. Crude weapons sharpened from bamboo, hardened in fire, planted in clusters beneath layers of brush. You'd be moving through the mud, eyes forward, ears straining for the sound of an ambush, when suddenly the ground gave way. Your foot plunged through a thin cover of leaves and dirt into a pit lined with spikes. The pain was instant, sharp and deep, bamboo skewering through boot, through sock, through flesh. You screamed before you realised what had happened, and by then it was too late. Infection was the real weapon. The spikes weren't just sharpened, they were coated in filth, smeared with excrement, left to fester so that even a shallow wound became deadly. You were lifted out of the pit, carried back, your leg already swelling, the smell of rot setting in before the bleeding had even stopped. Some pits were deeper, lined with spikes angled downward so you couldn't pull your leg free, without tearing the flesh worse. Others were designed to trap the whole body, a fall that left you impaled through the thigh, the stomach, even the chest. You saw the aftermath once. A man pulled out white-faced, his uniform soaked red, his eyes wide with shock. He hadn't been shot. He hadn't even seen the enemy. The jungle itself had cut him down. But pits were only the beginning. The enemy turned the ground, the trees, even the air into weapons. You learned to scan every step of the path, not just for snakes or roots, but for the signs of a trap. A wire stretched low across the trail, almost invisible in the dim light. Trip it and the jungle exploded. Sometimes it was grenades rigged with pins pulled taut. Sometimes it was sharpened stakes swinging from the trees, crashing down with enough force to impale a man clean through. You walked hunched, eyes darting everywhere, knowing that missing even one wire meant disaster. The creativity was endless. Bamboo whips rigged to swing with spikes or nails, triggered by a tripwire. Small charges buried underfoot, enough to blow off a foot, a leg, sometimes more. Even ammunition was tampered with. Rounds collected from battlefields, reloaded with explosives, then left behind. Pick them up, try to use them, and the weapon blew apart in your hands. Every object became suspicious. Every path became a question. You never trusted what you saw, because you knew the enemy had touched it first. Punji stakes weren't always hidden in pits. Sometimes they were buried just under the mud, waiting for boots to crush down. Sometimes they were angled along the sides of trails, designed to pierce calves and thighs when men brushed against them. Other times they were planted in streams or rivers, so that when you waded through chest-deep water, your legs sank down onto spikes you couldn't see. You moved slowly, testing the ground with sticks, your heart racing every time the mud gave way beneath you. The water wasn't just dangerous because of leeches or parasites. It was a killing field waiting to swallow you whole. The traps played with your mind more than your body. You started seeing threats where there weren't any. Every vine looked like a tripwire. Every mound of leaves looked like a pit. Every cluster of bamboo looked like it had been sharpened into stakes. You slowed down, scanning every inch of ground, every angle of the trees, every shadow. But the jungle was too dense, too endless. You couldn't see everything. You couldn't catch it all. And the enemy only needed you to miss once. The silence made it worse. You could march for hours without a shot fired, no enemy in sight, only to lose a man to a trap in an instant. One scream, one explosion, and the jungle erupted in chaos. Medics rushing forwards, men dropping to the ground, weapons raised, eyes scanning the trees for attackers that weren't there. Most of the time, no one fired back. There was nothing to fire at. The trap had already done its job. The jungle swallowed the sound again, leaving only the echo of pain, the smell of blood, the sight of another body broken by a weapon no one saw coming. You learned to listen differently. The usual sounds, birds, insects, frogs, weren't enough. You listened for the unnatural. The faint click of a pin, the subtle shift of bamboo, the too clean break in the brush where a wire might be hidden. You trained yourself to spot it, but training only went so far. The enemy knew the jungle better. He laid his traps with patience, precision, and an understanding of how to make them invisible. You could be the most cautious man alive and still fall victim. The fear spread through the unit. Every step became hesitant, every path suspicious. The jungle forced you to walk slower, crawl sometimes, sending scouts ahead with sticks to probe the ground. Progress slowed to a crawl. Fatigue set in. Nerves frayed. Arguments broke out over which way to move. Who should lead? Who should risk the next step? The enemy didn't need to fire a shot to break you down. The traps did it for him. Even when you escaped the traps, the threat stayed in your mind. You marched past a stretch of ground and felt relief, but the relief never lasted. The next mile could be worse. The next bend could hold something new. Sleep didn't erase it. You lay in your hammock, eyes open, thinking about the path you'd take tomorrow, imagining the traps waiting for you in the mud, in the trees, in the water. You dreamed of pungy stakes piercing your legs, of wires snapping tight, of explosions tearing you apart before you could react. You woke in the dark, with your heart pounding, gripping your rifle, the fear as real in the night as it was in the day. And that was the point. The traps weren't just about killing. They were about breaking you down, making you doubt every step, every movement, every choice. They turned the jungle into the enemy, the ground itself a weapon you couldn't escape. You weren't just fighting men. You were fighting the earth beneath you, the trees above you, the silence that never gave away what was coming. The jungle never gave you time to prepare. Battles didn't announce themselves with bugles or flags, didn't come with the build-up of formations clashing across open ground. They came out of silence. One moment you were marching, sweating, swatting at mosquitoes, your mind numbed by the monotony of heat and mud. The next moment the jungle erupted. The first sign was usually sound. A crack that didn't belong, sharp and fast, cutting through the drone of insects. Sometimes it was a single shot, sometimes a burst. You didn't know if it was aimed at you until the branches exploded around your head, splinters flying into your face. Then the yelling started. Orders, warnings, curses, none of it clear, all of it overlapping. The jungle became a storm of noise so sudden that it left you dizzy. You dropped to the ground, instinct more than thought, your body slamming into the mud, your rifle clutched to your chest. The air filled with gunfire, the rattling clatter of AKs, the heavier thud of M60s opening up in response. You pressed your cheek into the wet earth, breathing in dirt and sweat, trying to make yourself small, trying to spot movement through the wall of green. Most of the time, you couldn't see a thing. The enemy was hidden, their fire slicing through leaves, branches, air, but their bodies invisible. You fired back anyway, spraying rounds into shadows, into flashes of light, into the places you thought they might be. That was the worst of it, never seeing. You could hear them. You could feel the bullets snapping past, the bark splintering, the leaves shaking with impact. But your eyes gave you nothing. The jungle swallowed them whole, the enemy blending into the same mud, the same shadows, the same silence that surrounded you. Every firefight became a battle against ghosts. You fired blind, prayed your aim was true, prayed they didn't already have you in their sights. The chaos was total. Men shouted over each other, voices cracking with fear, weapons jamming in the mud, grenades exploding with dull thumps that left your ears ringing. The smell of gunpowder mixed with sweat and rotting vegetation. A choking stench that filled your lungs until you coughed. The heat didn't let up, not even in the middle of a fight. Sweat poured down your face, stinging your eyes, mixing with the grit and dirt that clung to your skin. You blinked through it, trying to focus, trying to remember your training, but training didn't prepare you for fighting an enemy you couldn't see. Sometimes the firefight lasted minutes. Sometimes it dragged on for hours, gunfire erupting in bursts, silence falling, then erupting again without warning. You never knew when it was over. You never knew if they had pulled back or if they were circling, waiting for you to move. You stayed crouched, weapon ready, nerves stretched so tight you thought you'd snap. Every rustle, every bird taking flight, every branch shifting in the wind set your finger twitching on the trigger. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The jungle fell silent again. No voices, no shots, no movement. Just the ringing in your ears and the pounding of your heart. You lifted your head slowly, scanning the trees, the brush, the shadows. Nothing. The enemy had vanished, melted back into the green without leaving a trace. The silence pressed down harder than the noise had. You wanted to believe it was over, but you never did. You knew they could be 100 yards away, or 10 feet, watching, waiting for the moment you relaxed. The aftermath was its own nightmare. You looked around and saw men sprawled in the mud, some moving, some not. You crawled to the closest one, your hands shaking, your stomach twisting at the sight of blood soaking through his uniform. The medic rushed in, his bag already open, his face set in grim determination. You tried to help, holding down wounds, pressing bandages, keeping heads lifted. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes the man stopped breathing anyway, his eyes staring blankly at the canopy above. You pulled yourself away, your hands sticky with blood, your throat tight, your ears still ringing from the fight. The jungle didn't give you time to mourn. Orders came fast, sharp, urgent. Move, regroup, sweep the area. You stumbled back into formation, your rifle heavy in your hands, your legs trembling, your mind still replaying the chaos. You stepped carefully, expecting another shot, another explosion, another fight you couldn't see coming. Night made it worse. Firefights in the dark were madness. Muzzle flashes lit the trees in brief bursts, shadows dancing wildly, impossible to track. Tracers streaked red through the canopy, vanishing into the black. You fired at the flashes, at the streaks, at the noise. The jungle became a flickering nightmare, bursts of light and sound, breaking the silence in terrifying intervals. You couldn't see the faces of the men beside you, couldn't tell if the shapes moving in the brush were friend or foe. Panic took over, and in that panic, mistakes happened. Friendly fire wasn't rare. Men died in the confusion, cut down by their own in the chaos of unseen enemies. The unpredictability was the worst part. You never knew when it would happen. You could be slogging through a swamp, exhausted, your mind dulled by the monotony, when suddenly gunfire rips through the air. You could be resting, eating cold rations in silence, when the first shots cut through camp. You could be sleeping, dreaming of home, when a burst of fire shattered the night and sent you diving for cover. The jungle didn't give you patterns. It gave you ambushes. Every moment of quiet was a setup. Every stretch of peace just another chance for the enemy to catch you off guard. The strain ate at you. Days of silence made you twitchy, jumpy, waiting for the crack of a rifle that never came. Hours of firefights left you drained, your body aching, your mind buzzing with adrenaline you couldn't shake. You learned to exist in the space between, never fully calm, never fully ready, just hovering in a state of constant tension. It wore you down more than the heat, more than the mud, more than the insects. You could brace yourself for discomfort. You couldn't brace yourself for the unknown. The enemy understood that. They didn't need to win every firefight. They just needed to keep you guessing, keep you exhausted, keep you doubting every step and every sound. They used the jungle the way you never could, disappearing into it, striking when you least expected it, vanishing again before you could bring your strength to bear. It wasn't about defeating you head on. It was about breaking you piece by piece, until the silence itself felt like another weapon. You carried that with you always. Even when the jungle was calm, even when the only sounds were the buzz of insects and the drip of rain, you felt it. The possibility. The inevitability. You knew the firefights would come. You just didn't know when. And that was enough to make every step, every breath, every moment in the jungle feel like the one before the storm. The jungle doesn't give you directions. It doesn't offer you a path to follow or a sign to tell you where you are. It doesn't care that you've been trained to read maps, to follow compasses, to memorize terrain. Out here, none of that matters the way it should. The jungle is its own map, one that changes every mile, one that refuses to be read. You can step into it with confidence, but soon you realize you're inside a maze with no end, no exit, no landmarks to guide you out. Everything looks the same. The same trees rising in thick walls on either side, their roots twisting out of the mud like snakes. The same canopy overhead, blocking out the sun, letting only dim green-tinted light reach you. The same vines dangling, the same brush clawing at your clothes, the same mud sucking at your boots. You take a dozen steps, and you could be anywhere. You take 100, and it feels like you've gone nowhere at all. The jungle doesn't change to give you orientation. It stays the same, mile after mile, until you start to question whether you're moving forward or just circling endlessly. The compass helps, but only barely. You check it constantly, the needle steady, pointing you in the right direction. But the terrain forces you to bend, to twist, to detour around rivers, swamps, ridges, and thick walls of growth you can't cut through. Every detour takes you further off the line you were trying to follow. You check the compass again, correct your course, move on. But after hours of this, you don't trust it anymore. You don't trust your own sense of direction either. Everything in you says you've been here before, that you've passed this tree, this patch of vines, this fallen log. You look at the compass and it says you're wrong. You look at the jungle and it says you're right. You don't know which one to believe. Maps are worse. On paper, the jungle is lines and shapes, rivers and ridges marked with precision. In reality, the rivers shift with the rains. The ridges are hidden under foliage, and the lines mean nothing when every step is a fight against mud, roots and thorns. You unfold the map in the damp air, your fingers smudging the ink, the paper softening until it threatens to tear. You stare at it, trying to match what you see with what's around you. But there's no match. You fold it again, shove it back into your pocket, and keep walking, relying on instinct, on habit, on the hope that someone else knows better than you do. The maze isn't just about getting lost. It's about being trapped. The walls aren't stone. They're trees, vines, thickets so dense you can't force your way through. You swing a machete, hacking at branches that spring back like whips, cutting through vines that tangle around your arms, your pack, your weapon. Each swing takes strength you don't have, and for every branch you cut, there are 10 more waiting. Progress is measured in feet, not miles. You sweat, you curse, you bleed from cuts where thorns sliced your skin, and still it feels like you've gone nowhere. The jungle pushes back against every attempt to move, as if it wants you to stay trapped inside it forever. The canopy makes it worse. It blocks the sky, hides the sun, keeps you in a twilight that never changes. Morning, noon, evening. It all looks the same under the green light. You lose track of time because there's nothing to mark it. Your watch tells you hours are passing, but your eyes don't believe it. You feel like you've been walking in circles for days, even if it's only been half of one. The maze doesn't just trap your body, it traps your sense of time, your sense of distance, your sense of reality. The jungle doesn't open up, not unless it wants to. Every clearing feels like a trick, a gap in the trees that seems like freedom, but is only another dead end. You step into it cautiously, your boots sinking into softer mud, your eyes scanning for movement. The air feels heavier there, the silence sharper, as if the jungle itself is holding its breath. You move through it quickly, uneasy, waiting for the ambush that so often comes in those open spaces. By the time you reach the far side, the trees close in again, and you're back inside the maze, the brief glimpse of space gone. Even rivers don't help. They don't run straight the way you expect. They curve and twist, doubling back on themselves, splitting into smaller streams that vanish into the ground. You follow one, thinking it will lead you somewhere, only to find it looping you back to where you started. Crossing them doesn't free you either. The far bank is just as tangled, just as endless, just as suffocating. You wade through, leeches clinging to your legs, water pulling at your gear, and when you climb out, the maze is waiting for you again. The enemy uses it better than you ever could. They know the paths, the hidden routes, the way to vanish into the green without a sound. You stumble, you hack, you curse, but they glide. You know they're watching, slipping through the maze as if it isn't there, laying traps, circling around, waiting for the moment you're disoriented enough to stumble into their line of fire. You never know if the maze itself is designed, if the jungle and the enemy are working together, or if it just feels that way. Either way, it leaves you lost, vulnerable, hunted. Fatigue makes it worse. After hours of slogging through mud, of fighting vines, of stumbling over roots, your body aches too much to care about direction. You stop checking the compass. You stop looking at the map. You just follow the man in front of you, trusting that someone knows where you're going. But no one does. The officers bark orders, the point man hacks forward, the line follows. But deep down, everyone knows the truth. The jungle decides where you go, not you. Night in the maze is its own torment. You can't see the trees, but you feel them. Branches scraping your arms, vines brushing your face, roots catching your boots. You move in darkness so complete it swallows your flashlight beam, the light bouncing back off the mist and fog until you see less with it than without. Every direction looks the same. Black walls, black sky, black ground. You could be moving forward, backward, or not at all. You stumble, you curse, you clutch your weapon tighter. Because in the maze, night doesn't just disorient you. It terrifies you. The feeling of being trapped never leaves. Even when you know the way out, even when you're on a path you've followed before, the jungle closes in so tight that it feels like the walls are moving with you. You can't see beyond 20 feet, can't hear beyond your own breathing, can't think beyond the next step. The maze presses in on your mind as much as your body. It tells you there's no way out, no exit, no escape. It tells you this is all there is. Trees, mud, vines, silence. It whispers that you could walk forever and never leave. That you could spend your whole life in here and die without ever seeing the sky again. And the worst part is, in those long, endless marches, you almost believe it. You look around at the walls of green, at the canopy above, at the mud sucking at your boots, and you realise you don't know how far you've come or how far you have left to go. You realise the jungle isn't just where you are, it's all there is. The jungle doesn't just cut your skin or rot your feet, it gets inside you. Every bite, every sip of water, every grain of food is another chance for sickness to take hold. The heat already leaves you drained, your body slick with sweat, your muscles aching from dehydration. But the jungle doesn't stop there. It sends in its smallest weapons, parasites, bacteria, viruses, things you can't see, can't fight, can't shoot. And once they're inside you, there's no way to march away from them. Malaria comes first in everyone's mind. The mosquitoes swarm in clouds thick enough to blur your vision, their high-pitched whine buzzing in your ears all night. You swat, you smear repellent, you hide under nets, but you can't stop them all. Each bite is a question mark, a roll of dice you know are rigged. The pills they give you are supposed to help, but they leave a bitter taste that clings to your tongue, and they don't always work. You see it in the men around you. Strong one day, shivering the next, sweat pouring off them even as their skin goes cold. It starts with chills, shaking that rattles your teeth, even in air so hot you can barely breathe. You curl up in your hammock, arms wrapped tight around yourself, trembling until your muscles ache. Then the fever spikes, your body burning from the inside, sweat soaking your clothes until they cling to you like a second skin. You gasp for air, your lungs working double just to keep up, your heart hammering against your ribs. Dreams mix with reality, the line between them blurring. You see shapes in the dark that aren't there, hear voices calling your name from the trees, feel the ground shift beneath you, even though you haven't moved. The fever comes in waves, hours of fire, followed by hours of shivering cold, followed by fire again. You can't rest, you can't think. You're trapped in your own body, burning and freezing at the same time, begging for water you can't keep down. The medic does what he can, pills, cloths soaked in tepid water, quiet words of encouragement. But you can see in his eyes that he knows. Malaria doesn't always kill, but it doesn't leave you whole either. It weakens you, breaks you, leaves you staggering even after the fever passes. You march again, but slower, thinner, every step harder than the last. Dysentery hits in a different way. It doesn't knock you flat immediately. It creeps up, a stomach cramp here, a rumbled air, until suddenly you can't hold anything in. You eat your rations, drink your water, and within an hour you're doubled over in the brush, your body emptying itself in a flood that leaves you trembling. The cramps twist your insides, sharp enough to make you gasp. Your stomach so tight it feels like it's tying itself in knots. The water loss is constant. You can drink all day and still feel your mouth dry, your lips cracked, your head light. You stumble when you march, your legs weak, your pack heavier than it's ever felt. The smell follows you. The jungle already stinks of rot and mildew, but dysentery adds another layer, sour and foul, clinging to clothes, to skin, to the air. There's no privacy. Everyone suffers it. Everyone squats in the same mud. Everyone groans with the same cramps. You hear the coughs, the gagging, the retching all around you. A soundtrack to the march as men try to keep moving with bodies that won't cooperate. You feel hollow, weak, like your insides have been scooped out. And still you march, because the jungle doesn't stop for sickness. Sometimes both hit at once. Malarious fever burning you alive, dysentery draining you until you can barely lift your rifle. You lie in your hammock, too weak to move, sweat dripping off your nose, your stomach cramping until you curl up and moan. Your body shakes so badly the whole hammock sways, your head spinning with fever dreams. You see home in flashes. Your bed, your kitchen table, a familiar street, but it shifts and melts into jungle shadows, into vines wrapping around you, into the sound of mosquitoes buzzing louder and louder until it drowns everything else out. You wake gasping, not sure if you ever slept at all. The fever dreams are the worst part. You lose your grip on reality. You see your family's faces in the brush, hear their voices in the rain. You reach for them, but your hand comes back full of mud. You talk to men who aren't there, laugh at jokes no one told, cry out at visions only you can see. The others watch, some with pity, some with fear, because they know it could be them next. They know the jungle is inside you, twisting your mind along with your body. The medics do what they can. Salt tablets, quinine, antibiotics when they're available. But supplies run thin, and the jungle doesn't wait for them to be restocked. Most of the time, you just ride it out. Some recover in days, their body's tough enough to fight it off. Others never really come back. They grow thinner, weaker, slower, until the jungle swallows them whole. You carry their packs when they can't, but there's only so much you can do. You can't carry their sickness for them. You can't carry their fever or their cramps. You can only march beside them and hope they keep standing. And even when you survive it, it doesn't let go. Malaria comes back in cycles, fevers returning weeks or months later without warning. Dysentery leaves your body so stripped of strength that you stumble even when you're well. The fever dreams linger, flashes of unreality that make you question your own mind. You never truly recover. The jungle makes sure of that. You start to dread every mosquito bite, every sip of water, every bite of food. You start to wonder which one will be the one that tips you over the edge, which one will be the last straw your body can't take. You know the enemy is out there, with rifles and traps and grenades. But more often than not, it isn't the bullets that bring you down. It's the sickness, the unseen enemy inside you, breaking you from within, while the jungle watches and waits. Mail call in the jungle was unlike anything else. It wasn't regular, it wasn't predictable, and it wasn't guaranteed. Some days the helicopters brought supplies, ammo and food, and tucked somewhere inside those nets of crates, there might be a canvas bag stuffed with envelopes. When it came, men dropped everything for it. Packs slid off shoulders, cigarettes burned down unnoticed, conversation stopped mid-sentence. Everyone gathered, waiting, straining their ears to hear their name read out. For a few minutes, the war faded. For a few minutes, the jungle wasn't the only world you knew. A letter from home was more than paper. It was proof that somewhere beyond the vines, beyond the mud, beyond the endless rain, there was still a life waiting. The envelope was soft, sometimes smudged from handling, sometimes damp from the air, but inside it was clean. Words written by hands that weren't calloused from rifles or machetes. You held it carefully, almost reverently, as if opening it too quickly might tear away the only connection you had left to normalcy. The words themselves weren't extraordinary. They were about weather, about neighbours, about little moments that didn't mean much back home. But here, they meant everything. a description of the first snow of the season, and you could almost feel the cold on your skin. A story about a nephew's birthday party, and you could almost hear the laughter. A note about the dogs sleeping at the foot of the beds, and you could almost smell the warm fur. The small things were what you missed most. The things you never noticed until they were gone. Some letters were full of love. Wives, girlfriends, mothers writing about how proud they were, how they prayed every night, how they counted the days until you came home. You read those words again and again, the ink fading at the creases where you unfolded and refolded the paper. At night, under your poncho in the hammock, you took it out and traced the handwriting with your fingers, pretending the touch was theirs. It wasn't enough, but it was all you had. Other letters weren't so kind. A girlfriend saying she couldn't wait anymore. A wife saying she'd found someone else. News of deaths, of sickness, of family troubles you couldn't fix from half a world away. Those words cut deeper than bullets. You read them in silence, folded the paper slowly, and shoved it into your pack. Some men tore them up immediately, throwing the scraps into the mud. Others kept them anyway, reading them over and over until the pain dulled. Out here, even bad news was still news. Even betrayal was still connection. And then there were the men who got nothing. No letters, no packages, no word from home. They sat quietly during mail call, forcing smiles, pretending they didn't care. But you saw it in their eyes, the hollow look of someone forgotten. They joked sometimes, saying the mail must have been lost, saying their families were just too busy to write. But in the silence after, when the others were reading their envelopes by flashlight, those men just stared into the dark, their hands empty. The jungle already made you feel abandoned. No letters made it worse. Packages were gold. Cigarettes, candy, socks, magazines. Anything from home was treasure. You tore them open eagerly, the smell of the outside world rising up from the box. Coffee that didn't taste like sludge. Gum that still had flavour. Soap that didn't reek of mildew. You shared when you could, trading pieces, passing things around, spreading the comfort as thin as possible. A single chocolate bar might be cut into chunks and passed down the line, each man savouring his piece as if it were the finest dessert he'd ever eaten. But even the joy of mail faded quickly. After the words were read, after the packages were emptied, the jungle was still there. The mud was still sucking at your boots. The rain was still hammering the leaves. The mosquitoes were still biting. You tucked the letter into your pack, folded carefully to keep it safe, but reality pressed back in. The contrast made the jungle feel worse, as if the reminder of another world only deepened the misery of this one. Homesickness wasn't dramatic. It wasn't sudden. It was slow, creeping, constant. It sat in the back of your mind, gnawing at you while you marched, while you ate, while you lay in your hammock. You pictured your bed, soft and dry, with clean sheets that didn't stink of mildew. You pictured a kitchen table with a hot meal, the steam rising, the smell of food that wasn't canned or powdered. You pictured walking down a street without mud, without fear, without the weight of a rifle cutting into your shoulder. These thoughts came unbidden, and once they came, they didn't leave. Night made it worse. The jungle was loud with frogs and insects, but beneath that, it was lonely. You stared at the canopy above, imagined the stars hidden behind it, and thought about the stars your family might be seeing on the other side of the world, You thought about the sound of a clock ticking in a quiet room, the hum of a refrigerator, the voices of people you loved. Out here, the only ticking was in your head, counting the days you couldn't name, the months you couldn't track. The mud seemed to drag homesickness deeper into you. You sat in it, marched in it, slept inches above it, and you thought about floors that were dry, firm, solid. You thought about the smell of cut grass instead of rot, about clean air instead of mildew, about silence that was peaceful instead of threatening. The mud clung to your body, to your gear, to your skin, and it felt like it clung to your soul too. You couldn't wash it off, no matter how hard you tried, and the more you thought about home, the more the mud reminded you that you weren't there. Some men coped by talking about home constantly. They shared stories, painted pictures with words of Sunday dinners, of girls they loved, of cars they planned to drive when they got back. The talk was a shield, a way to keep the jungle at bay for a little while. Others avoided the subject entirely, afraid that even a mention of home would break them. They sat silent while others reminisced, staring at the mud, chewing on cigarettes that had lost their flavour. You learned to respect both kinds. Everyone had their way of carrying the weight. Homesickness made every hardship heavier. The rain wasn't just rain. It was rain falling on you instead of a roof. The mud wasn't just mud. It was the absence of sidewalks and streets. The rations weren't just bland. They were a reminder of meals you couldn't have. The sickness wasn't just pain. It was suffering without the comfort of family nearby. The jungle itself wasn't just hostile. It was a prison, keeping you from the people you wanted most. The letters helped, even when they hurt. They gave shape to the longing, words to the ache that never left. You read them again and again, the paper softening, the ink smudging, until they were more memory than message. You carried them with you through every mile, tucked close, a piece of home pressed against your chest. They didn't change the jungle. They didn't make the mud any drier or the rain any lighter. But they reminded you that somewhere, beyond all of it, home still existed. And that reminder was the only thing that made the next step possible. The jungle was cruel during the day, but at night it became something else entirely. Darkness in this place wasn't the kind you knew back home. There were no streetlights glowing faintly in the distance, no moon casting silver light over quiet fields, no stars bright enough to guide you. The canopy overhead shut out everything. Even when the sky was clear, the trees swallowed the light before it ever reached you. Night here was absolute, thick, suffocating, endless. And when the rain came, which it almost always did, that darkness turned into chaos. Sheets of water hammered against the leaves, pouring through gaps in the canopy, soaking everything that wasn't already drenched. The sound was overwhelming. A steady roar that drowned out voices, footsteps, even your own thoughts. You sat in your hammock, poncho pulled tight, water dripping onto your face anyway, and tried to remind yourself that you were supposed to sleep. But nobody really slept in the jungle rain. Not when the ground turned to liquid mud below you. Not when your gear sagged under the weight of water. Not when you couldn't hear anything beyond the pounding of the storm. Fear was constant in those nights. You wanted to believe the rain covered you, masked your presence, kept the enemy away. But you knew it worked both ways. You couldn't hear them moving through the brush. You couldn't hear tripwires being set or stakes being planted. The rain made you deaf, and the darkness made you blind. You clutched your rifle, your hand cramping from the grip, your eyes wide in the blackness, imagining shadows moving just beyond your vision. Every creak of your hammock straps sounded like footsteps. Every splash of water dripping from a branch felt like someone creeping closer. Sleep didn't come, but exhaustion still pressed on you. Your eyelids grew heavy. Your head nodded forward. Your body begged for rest. You tried to fight it, afraid that closing your eyes, even for a second, would be the moment the jungle struck. Sometimes you lost the fight anyway. You drifted, shallow and uneasy, your dreams blending with the sounds around you. You woke with a jolt, heart racing, unsure if the gunfire you heard had been real or imagined. The line between waking and dreaming blurred until you weren't sure which world was worse. When the rain eased, the fear didn't. The jungle was louder after storms, alive with the croaks of frogs, the buzz of insects, the rustle of animals moving through wet undergrowth. Each sound was sharp, amplified by the silence that had followed the downpour. You strained to separate natural noise from unnatural. Was that just a bird? Was that just a branch falling? Or was it the enemy moving in the dark, as silent and patient as the jungle itself? You told yourself not to imagine it, but imagination didn't stop. It grew worse. Your body never got the rest it needed. Lying in a wet hammock, your skin sticky with sweat, your clothes plastered to you, your feet throbbing, your back aching, you shifted constantly, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. Every movement made the hammock sway, the ropes creak, the net shift. The insects found their way in, no matter how tightly you tied it. You slapped at your arms, your neck, your legs, until you gave up and just let them bite. By morning your skin was dotted with welts, each one itching, each one a reminder of the hours you'd spent awake, helpless against them. Some nights you counted the hours, though you weren't sure how many there really were. Time felt distorted in the jungle. Rain blurred it, darkness swallowed it, exhaustion stretched it out into something endless. You told yourself it had to be close to dawn, only to check your watch and realize barely an hour had passed. The night stretched on, mile after mile of silence and fear, until you felt like it would never end. Men broke under nights like that. Some whispered to themselves, rocking slightly in their hammocks, clutching letters from home like talismans. Others stared into the dark, eyes wide, refusing to blink, convinced that if they looked away for even a second, something would strike. A few begged for cigarettes, desperate for the comfort of smoke, even though lighting one could give away your position. They weighed the risk against the fear, and sometimes chose the cigarette anyway. The glow of the tip lit up their faces, eyes hollow, jaws clenched, breaths shallow. The worst nights were the quiet ones, when the rain stopped completely, when the animals went still, when the jungle fell silent. That silence was heavier than the roar of any storm. You felt it pressing down, thick and suffocating, as if the whole world was holding its breath. You listened harder than ever, your ears straining for a sound that never came. Silence meant danger. Silence meant they were close. You lay there, your pulse hammering in your ears, sweat dripping into your eyes, waiting for the shot, the explosion, the ambush. Sometimes it came, sometimes it didn't. Either way, you didn't sleep. By dawn, you felt like you'd aged years in a single night. Your body sagged, your mind dulled, your limbs heavy. You climbed out of the hammock stiff and aching, your boots wet and sour, your socks slimy against your skin. You forced yourself to move, to pack, to march because there was no alternative. The jungle didn't care that you hadn't slept. The orders didn't care that your body was begging for rest. You carried the exhaustion with you into the next day and the day after and the day after that. It built layer upon layer until sleep became something you didn't even remember clearly. And you knew the next night would be the same. More rain, more fear, more silence that wasn't silent at all. More hours spent clutching a rifle, eyes wide, body trembling with exhaustion. More hours listening to the jungle breathe, waiting for it to strike. Sleep wasn't rest here. It was another battle, one you lost night after night until you forgot what it felt like to win. Every man who went into the jungle carried the same burden, and it wasn't just fear or fatigue, it was weight. The gear strapped to your body was as much a part of you as your skin. Rifle, helmet, pack, ammo, water, rations, poncho, hammock, boots, all of it pressing down, dragging at you, wearing you thin day after day until your body felt like it was being carved apart under the load. The jungle didn't just attack you with insects and heat. It used your own gear against you, turning every ounce into a weapon aimed at your back, your shoulders, your feet. The rifle was always there, slung across your chest or in your hands. It weighed less than 10 pounds, but it felt like 100 when you'd been carrying it for hours, when your arms were slick with sweat and your shoulders screamed from the strap digging in. You couldn't put it down, not even for a minute. It was your lifeline, your shield, your constant responsibility. You cleaned it every day, oiled it, babied it, because you knew the jungle would ruin it if you didn't. But no matter how well you cared for it, the rifle never stopped being a weight you couldn't escape. The helmet pressed down on your head, trapping heat, sweat dripping into your eyes. The strap dug into your chin until the skin blistered, rubbed raw by friction and salt. You thought about taking it off, thought about marching bareheaded just for the relief, but you didn't, you couldn't. You needed it for the shrapnel, for the branches, for the moments when the firefight erupted without warning. So you wore it, hour after hour, the band biting into your forehead, your neck stiff from the strain. The pack was the real enemy. It held everything you needed to survive, and because of that, it felt like it would kill you. 40 pounds, 50, sometimes more, the straps cutting into your shoulders until they went numb. Inside was everything. Ammo stacked heavy, cans of rations clanking against each other, spare socks already damp, water sloshing in canteens, grenades weighing down the sides. You packed it carefully, tried to balance the load, but nothing ever made it lighter. The jungle made sure of that. The mud sucked at it, dragging it down. Vines snagged it. Branches tore at it. Every ounce feeling doubled with each mile. The straps rubbed your collarbones raw, leaving sores that bled into your shirt. The weight bent your spine, compressed your knees, turned every step into work. You shifted it constantly, leaning forward, leaning back, trying to ease the strain. Nothing worked. The pain just moved from one place to another, from your shoulders to your hips to your knees, until your whole body throbbed in rhythm with your steps. Water was supposed to help you, but it betrayed you too. Each canteen weighed heavy, sloshing as you marched, reminding you of how thirsty you always were. You rationed it, sipped it warm, bitter, flat. You cursed its weight when you were strong, and begged for more when you were empty. Sometimes you carried extra because you knew the rivers couldn't be trusted. That extra weight pressed into your side, dragging your belt lower, pulling at your back until you felt twisted. Ammo was worse. Magazines stacked in pouches, belts of machine gun rounds draped over shoulders, grenades clinking as you moved. You prayed you wouldn't need them, but you carried them anyway. You knew a firefight could erupt at any second, and the worst feeling in the world was reaching for a magazine and finding nothing. So you carried more, and more, until the weight became crushing. Each round felt like it belonged more to the jungle than to you, dragging you deeper with every step. The poncho and hammock seemed light at first, but when they were soaked, they turned heavy and foul. Rolled up and strapped to your pack, they sagged with water, dripping into the mud, adding pounds you didn't count but felt. At night, when you unrolled them, they reeked of mildew, heavy with damp, sticking to your hands. You stuffed them back in the morning, heavier than before, and carried them again. Even your clothes were weight. The uniform clung to your body, soaked with sweat, then rain, then sweat again. It never dried, and the fabric sagged on you, dragging with every move. The boots, already heavy with mud, carried extra pounds of water inside them. You felt it slosh with each step, your feet blistered and raw, your toes swollen. You thought about how light it would feel to walk barefoot, and then you remembered what waited for bare feet in the jungle. You took the boots, the socks, the blisters, the rot. You carried it all. The radio men had it worst. The set on their back weighed 60 pounds or more, the antenna sticking up like a beacon, the straps carving into their shoulders deeper than anyone else's. Every step for them was punishment, every mile a battle. They stumbled under the weight, packs swaying, sweat pouring, eyes hollow from the strain. But the radio was the line to survival, the only way to call in help, to reach the helicopters, to find your way in the maze. So they carried it, breaking their bodies one march at a time. The gear wore you down faster than the enemy ever could. You started the day strong, shoulders squared, rifle steady. By noon, you hunched forward, the straps digging into you, the rifle drooping in your hands. By evening, you staggered, every muscle screaming, your body one big ache. You dreamed of dropping it all, of stepping free, of walking into the jungle with nothing but your skin. But you couldn't. Without the gear, you were naked, vulnerable, helpless. So you bore it, mile after mile, until your body broke under the strain. Sleep didn't fix it. You lay in your hammock, shoulders throbbing, hips bruised, spine curved. The pack hung nearby, heavy even in silence, waiting for the next day. You drifted in and out, but the ache never left. By morning, you slid it back on, straps pressing into the same sores, weight falling on the same bones. You groaned, you cursed, you marched anyway. There was no choice. The gear was part of you, and it would break you long before the jungle was done. Survival in the jungle wasn't about winning. It wasn't about charging forward with flags flying or standing triumphant on high ground. It was about making it through the day, one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time. The enemy was real and the firefights were terrifying, but what weighed on you most was the daily grind of just existing in a place designed to grind you down. Surviving the day meant surviving the jungle, and that was a battle that never really ended. From the moment you woke, you were already behind. You opened your eyes in the hammock, your body sore from another night of half sleep, rain dripping through the canopy, mosquitoes whining in your ears. You shifted, your back aching, your skin sticky, your feet throbbing in boots that never dried. The day hadn't even begun, and already you were exhausted. You swung your legs over the edge, slid them into wet socks, pulled on heavy gear, and braced yourself for what came next. That was the routine. That was survival. Breakfast wasn't comfort. It was rations pulled from a pack, cans opened with shaking hands, crackers chewed slowly just to get something in your stomach. The food was bland, the coffee bitter, the water warm. You forced it down, not because you wanted it, but because you needed fuel for the march ahead. You packed up quickly, stowed the hammock, strapped on the pack that bent your spine, and fell into line. The jungle didn't wait for you to be ready. It just kept pressing in. The march was the heart of survival. One boot in front of the other, mud sucking at your soles, vines tangling around your ankles, sweat pouring down until your uniform clung like a second skin. Your rifle weighed heavier every hour. Your shoulders ached from the straps. Your legs burned from the strain. You focused on small goals. The next bend in the trail. The next rise of ground. The next 15 minutes. You didn't think about the whole day or the whole mission. If you did, it crushed you. You thought only about the next step. That was how you survived. The jungle tried to break you constantly. Insects bit until your skin was a mass of welts. Leeches clung until your socks squished with blood. Every cut threatened infection. Every scratch could turn into jungle rot. You checked your body when you could. Rubbed on powder, changed socks, but it never felt like enough. You watched your skin anyway. Watched for the swelling, the streaks of red, the signs that the jungle had gotten inside. You learned to fear your own body as much as the enemy. Every stream you crossed was another risk. The water looked cool, refreshing, but you knew better. You tested it, scooped it, dropped in tablets, drank reluctantly. You knew you needed it, but you also knew it could lay you low with cramps and fever. You carried the weight of extra canteens, cursed them as they dragged at your hips, thanked them when the thirst became unbearable. You balanced the need to drink against the need to stay standing. That was survival too. The enemy was never far, even when you couldn't see him. You scanned constantly, eyes darting, ears straining for a sound that didn't belong. A snap of a twig, a whisper of movement, a silence too heavy to ignore. You moved cautiously, rifles at the ready, knowing that any patch of ground could hold a trap. Any shadow could hide a rifle. Firefights came without warning, chaos exploding in an instant, and you reacted without thinking. Dropped to the mud, fired into the green, shouted over the noise. Then just as suddenly it ended. The silence returned, and you were left with shaking hands, ringing ears, and the knowledge that survival meant being ready to fight when you couldn't see who you were fighting. Rest was never really rest. You sat when you could, packs leaning against trees, cigarettes lit, water rationed in sips. You leaned your head back, eyes closed, and tried to forget the weight on your body. But the jungle never let you forget. The insects found you immediately, crawling into your clothes, biting at your skin. The mud stuck to you, drying into a crust that cracked when you moved. The smell of rot and mildew filled your nose. Even in moments of stillness, the jungle pressed in, reminding you that rest was temporary, fragile, fleeting. Night came fast, and with it, another layer of survival. You strung up your hammock, tied the poncho, checked your rifle again. The dark swallowed everything. You lay still, ears straining, hands gripping the weapon across your chest. The rain hammered down, drowning sound, leaving you blind and deaf. You dozed in bursts, waking with a start to every rustle, every creak. Sleep wasn't rest, it was endurance. You survived the night by staying half awake, by clinging to the edge of alertness, by convincing yourself that dawn would come again. Surviving the jungle wasn't about one thing. It wasn't about one trick, one tactic, one moment of bravery. It was about enduring all of it, every piece stacked together, every hardship pressing down until you thought you couldn't take it anymore, and then taking it anyway. It was about blisters and rashes, about thirst and hunger, about fear and exhaustion. It was about carrying weight that bent your spine, about walking through mud that swallowed your boots, about listening to silence that could mean anything. It was about waking up each morning and doing it again, even when your body screamed for rest, even when your mind begged for escape. And at the end of the day, survival meant more than staying alive. It meant not giving in, not letting the jungle win by breaking you. You knew it was stronger, older, more patient than you. You knew it could outlast you easily. But each day you stood, marched, ate, drank, and endured was another day you stole from it. Surviving the jungle meant refusing to let it take everything from you, even when it took almost everything already. If you've stayed with me through this journey, you've seen how the jungle itself became an enemy, one that never rested, never relented, and never gave anyone a moment of peace. The stories of firefights and battles only tell half of what it meant to be there. The other half was mud, sickness, insects, heat, exhaustion, fear, and the long, slow fight just to survive the day. It's strange to think about now, sitting far away from it, in a world where clean water runs from a tap, where dry socks are waiting in a drawer, where sleep comes in a real bed. The contrast almost feels unreal, as if those days in the green belong to another planet, not just another time. But for the men who walked those paths, it was all real, and it shaped them forever. As you lie here listening, maybe ready to drift off, maybe just thinking quietly in the dark, remember how small the line was between comfort and misery, between safety and danger, between life and death. History has a way of looking grand when it's told in books, but up close it's made of details. Sweat dripping into your eyes, boots that never dry, a letter from home folded and refolded until the ink smudges. Those details tell the truth more than the battles ever can. So tonight, let the noise of the outside world fade a little. Let your shoulders ease down. Let your eyes grow heavier. You don't have to march anywhere. You don't have to carry the weight. The rain isn't pouring. The insects aren't biting. The silence isn't dangerous. You're safe where you are. And if your mind keeps wandering, if it circles around the maze of thoughts the way soldiers once circled through the jungle, that's all right. Just let it slow down. Let it soften. Let it drift. Thanks for being here with me, for sharing this quiet time. I hope you find rest tonight, wherever you are.